We are so delighted to have all of you here today. It's great to see, of course, our students are here, but we have capstone sponsors, we have faculty advisors, we have family who've traveled a long way to see their loved one sort of semi-graduate here today, and a lot of friends and supporters of the program. So we're just delighted. And so a very warm Hokie welcome to all of you. And we hope you enjoy our time this morning. My name is Cliff Ragsdale. I've been blessed to serve as academic director for this program since its inception 9 years ago in the summer of 2015. And it's nice to see a few of my compatriots who helped launch this thing way back then too. Mike and Adrian, nice to see you here. And ordinarily, our executive director, Jay Winkler, would be here sort of kicking things off and doing a lot of emceeing today. He had an important personal matter arise scheduled for this morning that just could not be moved. We do expect that he will be able to join us a bit later. But I know he would, send his regrets for not being here, but also welcome to everyone also. Today is really a celebration of the students that we've had in Cohort 8 here for the past year. It's been a fantastic group of students to work with. And, the year has really flown by. I was thinking last night, almost exactly 10 months ago on August 15th, we first met as a group in the room right behind us for orientation. And now here we are. And a month after orientation, so 9 months ago on September 20th was when we first put our capstone teams together in sort of a very embryonic form back then, 9 months ago. So it's appropriate then that 9 months later, we're here kind of for final delivery of these capstone projects that they've been working on all year. Actually, their quote unquote final delivery, the past couple of weeks, they've been traveling far and wide to go on site with their capstone sponsors and do the final presentations there. Today, we'll see sort of a edited, abbreviated, and for confidentiality reasons, some things have been removed. But in any event, getting them ready for the final presentations, I know they probably felt like they sort of went through the gauntlet. We employ a very painstaking, grueling approach with many rehearsals to get them ready for their final presentations. And I know they probably leave some of those rehearsals thinking, what are they, why are they so mean? As we get into really scrutinizing everything in their presentations, all the words they say, the way they stand, the commas versus the semicolons on the slides, the whole 9 yards. But there's a reason for that I think is summarized pretty well in the quote I encountered recently by the old football legend Vince Lombardi. He said, "We chase perfection, and we chase it relentlessly, all the while knowing that we will never attain it. But along the way, we will capture excellence." And I think that's what really happened. That's why we do all those presentations, to capture excellence. And based on all the feedback that we've received from our capstone sponsors, Cohort 8, you captured and delivered excellence. And we are so proud of all the work that you did. And so again, today is just our day to kind of celebrate you and your accomplishments and all that you've done this year. It will be said many times today, but it's worth saying one more time. Thank you to our capstone sponsors. When we first launched this program 9 years ago, we were looking at the actual, corporate projects for students to work on to be really the centerpiece of this program, to give the students a really impactful experiential learning experience. And And so without our capstone sponsors, we couldn't do that. And this program would not be what it is. So really from the bottom of my heart, thank you to our capstone sponsors. So with all that said, I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Jennifer Havens, who's the director of the Center for Business Analytics. And one of her primary roles is really working with our students over the course of the year and sort of shepherding them through the capstone process as they go. So Jennifer, over to you.
Good morning. So you've heard a little bit about our process as we've gone through with the students, but over the last 4.5 weeks or so, we've driven over 5,000 miles. We've been through 45 practice sessions with the students and what I like to call my colleagues. We've also had some interesting mishaps and excitement along the way, such as let's see, fire alarms in the middle of the night, water main breaks, but through all of that, we've had some amazing meals, some laughs, some dynamic conversations on the road, and we've been driven for the most part by our fearless leader, Jay Winkler. So what I'd like to do this morning is express some points of gratitude in addition to what Dr. Ragsdale shared, and I'll share with you the agenda for the day. So first and foremost, although you've just met Dr. Ragsdale, or some of you have known him for a long time, he's the founder of the Center for Business Analytics. And without Cliff, I think that this program would not have evolved in the same way that it did. So I'm so thankful that Cliff actually retired last year and he stayed on with us for one more year, which we're so grateful for. I've been capturing Cliffisms or quotes from Cliff throughout the year. I have them on my board in my office, as some of you may know. Things like love rights no wrongs, or everyone can't have their way, but everyone should have their say. And these tidbits and words of wisdom, I believe, will carry me through my career. So thank you very, very much. I'd also like to introduce you to Dr. Jason Dean, if you don't mind to stand up and wave, who's going to take over and Dr. Dean is an esteemed professor within our BIT department in Pamplin. He's also a published writer, researcher, focusing on supply chain management, decision support systems, and humanitarian efforts. And we're so grateful you'll be joining us, and I can't wait to work with you. Also, I wouldn't be able to get through this morning without talking about our faculty advisors through the process. So each of our capstone teams have worked with a faculty advisor throughout the year. And it's through their inspiration, their creativity, their accountability, and their innovation that I think that has helped the teams. And you all will also share some of your gratitude as you present. But it's through their efforts, I believe, that take the technical and the professional component of the capstone projects and really make them what they are today. So a big warm welcome and thank you to our capstone advisors. I know we mentioned our sponsors, or as we call our clients, which we do really try to produce a return on investment or return on impact for all of you. And I think you'll see that today through these presentations, but I would also like to thank you for your support, for your mentorship and your guidance. I personally have learned so much from you through the year as well. So thank you so much. Announcement. I want to invite you to our annual Day for Data. This is our premier event for the Center for Business Analytics. This is an opportunity for companies, students, faculty to come together and to talk about some of the most burning topics of our time and what's impacting society. Things like generative AI, machine learning, how problem solving and complexity come together. So this is going to be in November this year, and we'll continue to have dynamic speakers and researchers come together. So please plan to join us in November for this. And if you're interested in sponsoring, certainly we're open to that. We would love it. All right, without further ado, our agenda for today. So we're going to have everything's in alphabetical order, just to keep life simple for everyone. Students will present their capstone projects, the first 5 or so, and then we'll have a short break so you can network, ask some questions, but certainly feel free to ask questions as we go. Students are prepared for that and ready for it. Then we'll have some more presentations after break and some closing ceremonies where Dr. Jay Winkler will present some awards as well as our certificates. Something kind of unique or interesting I think the students might find fun Do you remember at orientation when you wrote your postcards from the future? Remember those? You get them back today. You don't remember, Clay? You have one. I had to look up your initials on it. So in addition to your certificates, you'll get to see this note you wrote yourself back in August of what you believed you would be experiencing today. I can't wait to hear your perspectives and if it came true. All right. And finally, after we wrap up our presentations today, please join us at Maroon Door for a celebration reception. It's casual. If you choose to be, that would be great. And we hope to see you there. All right, without further ado, well, one more announcement. Thank you, Shannon. If you do need to get up during our time together this morning, please use the aisles to go to the back door. It'll be a little more convenient and it will less disruptive, I guess, to be transparent. So please use the back doors if you don't mind. All right, Advanced Auto, take it away.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here with us today. For those of you that do know us, good to see you again. For those of you that don't know us, we're the Virginia Tech Advanced Auto Capstone team employed to investigate company data and ultimately predict new store performance. Without further delay, my name is Jared Brossman. I graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in economics and data science, and I'll be working as a technology analyst later this August.
My name is Bobby Beal. I graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in Business Information Technology and Business Management, and I'm looking to work in data analytics after graduation.
My name is Kim Wonderful Paisart. I graduated from Virginia Tech with aerospace engineering degree, and I'm going to work as a business analyst in August this year.
My name is Pratik Battardini. I also went to Virginia Tech, and I majored in Business Information Technology, and I hope to work as a tech consultant this fall.
And my name is Graham Fike. I also went to Virginia Tech and got a business information technology undergraduate degree. And I hope to be working in consulting this coming fall. So before we get started, we just want to say a couple thank yous, especially to our faculty advisor, Jonathan Everett, who's been very helpful throughout this project, especially during the financial pieces. And also, of course, thank you to our sponsor, Advanced Auto, especially Brad and Roger, who have been instrumental in this project. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Pratik, who's going to get us started.
As consultants, we've had the opportunity to take a deep dive into the vast amounts of data collected and provided to us by Advanced Auto Parts. Now, this data set was incredibly rich, and it encompassed things ranging from population all the way to demographic variables. So to give a few examples, this includes things such as income, household compositions, age, and so on and so forth. So from the get-go, it became very clear to us that having a data set of this size meant that the opportunity to extract decisions was huge. But the challenge that we faced was how exactly do we leverage such a complex data set in order to make effective and accurate predictions as it relates to predicting new store performance. Our first step in the process was to ensure the integrity of our data. Now, this included addressing any inaccuracies, filling in any missing values, and essentially standardizing our data. And this was an important piece for us because it set a solid foundation for all subsequent analysis. Second, we moved into our regression analysis, and here we did a deep dive into the data in order to uncover any meaningful patterns and correlations. And by employing the use of statistical analysis, we then narrowed our focus down on the variables that explain store performance the best. However, something to note here is while we were able to get insights from this method, we did not gain the optimal predictive accuracy, which is why we pivoted into our third step of the process, which was a comparison of various machine learning techniques. And the purpose of this step was to look at the machine learning technique that had the best accuracy when it came to solving our problem. So with this in mind, we chose to build our neural network as it had the most promising results. And this was essentially an advanced predictive technique that used machine learning to analyze complex trends within our data to make a prediction about a future store of whether or not it would be above or below the median gross margin levels of all stores. And this was key for us because not only did it help us navigate through complexities, but it also helped us capitalize on opportunities with a high predictive accuracy. And then finally, we took it home with our economic analysis. Here we were able to illustrate the financial implications of our model, and we were able to do this by analyzing the potential cash flows received from the model should it be implemented, And by doing that, we painted a picture of the value this would bring to the organization. And now I'll hand it off to Bobby to take us into the solution.
Thanks, Pratik. So after considering a wide range of machine learning options, we decided to move forward with a neural network model as the optimal tool for our situation. So getting into some of the details on how the tool actually works. To start, the user will be prompted to enter in 5 different input variables. These variables were chosen automatically within our Python program. So they weigh the relationship and significance of all the variables on the target variable. And so the model works by taking these 5 input variables and then leading to a singular value of gross margin, for which we created a binary variable to determine whether or not the store would be projected as over or underperforming. This is determined by showing whether or not a store will be above or below the median gross margin level of past Advance Auto stores. So now that we know how the tool works, we can get into some of the model performance and how well we were actually able to predict these new stores. So starting with the training data, in which we allocated 80% of the stores that we were given. This stage is important for helping the model become accustomed to the different patterns and trends that lead to specific outputs in the data. And we found the accuracy for this stage to be 77.5%. Then once the model has been trained, we can move on to the testing stage, where the remaining 20% of the store data was allocated. And we found that the accuracy for this stage was 73%. And this is the most important part of the analysis, as it shows how the model can react to new data being brought into the system. And so for a few key takeaways from this, we can say that this is a reliable tool for projecting store performance, as there's minimal drop-off between the training and testing phases and accuracy. And also, one more important thing to note is that sample size is an important factor in the model's learning capacity. So as more stores are introduced into the model, we can expect these accuracies to increase. Next, I'll pass it off to Jared for some return on investment analysis.
Thank you, Bobby. So to calculate return on investment, we performed a traditional discounted cash flow analysis, where we took sales, cost of goods sold, depreciation, amortization, SG&A expense, and capital expenditures to get the future free cash flows for both the above and below classified stores. We then discounted it back to the present value, and the difference between these two is what's seen as the opportunity cost of a correctly predicted store. While the actual figures have been hidden for confidentiality purposes, it's important to note that the difference between the two is a positive value, implicating a positive gain for Advance Auto over the next 5 years. Next, we wanted to see how our model would perform if it was implemented for all future new store openings, looking at historical 10K data. From this, in a 2% sales growth rate, we're able to see that it is positive and increasing over the next couple years. And it's also important to note that certain discount rates, growth rates, and economic conditions are subject to change, and these figures are not set in stone. Now I'll pass it off to Gift to go over recommendations.
Thank you, Jared. For the final recommendations, we recommend to apply the subset of the stores that are going to be open in the future to our neural network model in order to select the location of the new stores and then track the performance of the stores and compare it to the baseline. If it outperforms the baseline, then our model can be implemented to the future store openings. And moving on to some next step possibly for our model. To increase the effectiveness of the models, we recommend to apply all of the available store data to our model, and then also use the real-time stores reporting structure using the cloud database to make the data easier to be added to our model, and finally continue to run and tune the model to ensure the optimal predictor variables. And next, I will pass back to Pratik for the final comments for this project.
Thank you, Gift. So we learned a lot the past 9 months working on the project, and we've summarized 3 main takeaways. First is to not be afraid to ask your sponsor any questions. We found that our sponsor came with a lot of experience and real-world problem-solving abilities, and that by proactively reaching out to them and asking them questions along the way, we were able to deliver a final, smooth, polished product. Second, the solution can change at any moment in time. This is a given with a project of this length, and the best way to tackle this is to have a positive attitude and being able to be flexible with whatever challenges that are thrown your way. And then finally, leading on the support of the CBA staff, whether it's a question about technical analysis, general recommendations, or even presentation tips, we found that they were there every step of the way. So we can't thank you guys enough for that.
Thank you all for listening to our presentation, and if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Let me just go ahead and start off with questions. I used to help you guys out with this one. So Roger Friesleben, good guy, really like him. Question I have for you is your last three bullets were very succinct, and I agree, asking customers questions is very important, because the truth of the matter, in the consulting world, they're not hiring you because they have all the answers. They're hiring you because they need to get answers from you, so it requires you to ask questions. My question to you is, in this process, you probably had a lot of different data that came at you. It seems to me in your presentation that that's the case. How long in the life cycle of your project did you finally get comfortable with that data? Was it all given to you at once, or did you have to ask for pieces of it as the project went along?
Well, we were given the chunk of the data up front. And we were given sales for DIY, pro, and then total sales per site ID. But then we wanted to pivot into gross margin because we thought it better valued a company's profitability as accounting for costs.
Right.
And so that was the only data that we had to add on to the initial data set.
So they had a pretty good idea of the scope of the project and the data they need.
They did,
Say
but
thank you.
Yes. So your inputs included 5 variables, and most of them seem to be heavily weighted toward demographics. Did you do any type of sensitivity analysis to see how the model would respond if you eliminated, say, the SKUs and the competitor analysis and just used demographics to predict store performance?
Yeah, so within our Python program, there's in the code, there's a way that it goes through all the variables and picks the combination of them that would end up with the highest accuracy. So I just went with that, really end up with the highest accuracy.
Okay. So would your gut tell you that if you just eliminated the competitor analysis and the SKUs and just focused on demographics, do you think that you would have gotten a pretty good result just based upon that information alone?
Yeah, probably would have been pretty strong, but maybe not as strong.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious, did you take into consideration the impact of the store leadership and the staff and their effectiveness in the analysis?
that was a question was brought up with our sponsor meeting as well. And there was no way in the current system they have to quantify that. Our suggestion was to do a company survey, and to like rate leadership on a scale of 1 to 10, whatever number you want. And that would be a way to quantify it and include it in the model, but there was no current number for that.
As our next team comes up, I do want to, you've already kind of met one of our distinguished guests, but we also have the founding academic director and the founding program manager, Adrian and Mike, here with us today. So some of our distinguished guests. Thank you for being here. All right, next team, ARC.
All day.
Good morning, everybody. Today we'll be talking about quantitative methods to evaluate risk. My name is Declan Boyle. I graduated from Virginia Tech last spring with an undergraduate degree in political science and an integrated security minor. After graduation, I plan to work in the DC metropolitan area working in public sector IT sales.
My name is Clay Eckert, and I graduated in the fall of 2022 from the University of Kansas with an undergraduate degree in marketing. Post-graduation, I plan on going to law school with the ultimate goal of becoming a pro sports agent.
My name is Nick Visciso. I did my undergraduate degree at Virginia Tech in spring 2023 in cybersecurity. And post-graduation, my plans are to work in the Northern Virginia, DC area, focusing in cybersecurity consulting and data analytics.
We're here today on behalf of our capstone sponsor, Mr. Scott Lucero from the Acquisition Innovation Research Center, and would like to thank him as well as our faculty advisor, Mr. John Garrity from Virginia Tech's Industrial and Systems Engineering Department for all of their advice, guidance, and insight along this process. Now over to Clay to give us some more context.
Thanks, Declan. So our capstone sponsor was the Acquisition Innovation Research Center, which is a company that was established in September of 2020 by the Department of Defense with the initiative to integrate innovation and alternative disciplines from the universities that it works with. It has already partnered with over 22 universities and almost 800 HBCU and minority institutions, and is a multidisciplinary company working with a wide array of professional fields. A little bit more context of our project. The United States hasn't engaged in major naval fleet combat since World War II, and therefore it's difficult to recognize our ability to maintain operational superiority against developed enemy. Similarly, a rising conflict between the United States and top naval forces such as Russia and China, in addition to development in drone technology, it's become evident that we must recognize our own naval capabilities in areas in need of improvement. Lastly, alongside the Acquisition Innovation Research Center, or AIRC, we are working to establish methods to quantitatively evaluate the risk of a portfolio of the Navy's science and technology research efforts. I'll now pass it over to Nick for our problem statement.
Thanks, Clay. So the problem statement that our team has developed and come up with is how can we establish methods to quantitatively evaluate portfolios within the Navy's science and technology acquisition research efforts. Now I'll pass it back over to Clay to talk a little more about our methodology.
Thanks, Nick. So for our methods, we had two main ones. The first being literature review of numerous Navy science and technology and portfolio approach articles. This was extremely helpful in bettering our understanding of both the field of our project and potential recommendations that we may want to use. Next, we conducted 15 to 20 interviews with professionals working with or for DARPA, Raytheon, Nave Air, the Pentagon, the Office of Naval Research, the Center for Naval Analyses, and individuals in the finance field. Our team was immensely grateful for this opportunity and the ability to personalize questions in a way that gained insight to each individual's area of expertise, which all went on to building a better foundation of knowledge of both the field itself and assessing risk as a whole. And I'll pass it back over to Nick for our proposed solution.
Thanks, Clay. So the proposed solution that our team's developed and come up with is how can we are using a stage gate approach within the DoD's acquisition process. First, we look at the core components, which it breaks the project lifecycle down into distinct stages, including preliminary research, development, and testing. There's critical decisions at each of the gates for a project's either continuation or its termination. The benefits of using this approach is that it is able to take both the failures and successes and continue moving them down in the pipeline of the stage gate framework, helping us lead to a final working solution. The stage gate approach, like I said, is an iterative risk assessment framework, which means it can still take this data from these failed projects and recycle them back into the new and ongoing portfolios. That way we're not losing as much time and resources, and then we're able to still continue leading forward to our final working solution. Lastly, its ability to enhance the portfolio's resilience. Again, by being able to take both the successes and failures and recycle them back into the portfolio as a whole, we're able to save valuable time and resources in the project. And this allows for project managers to make much more effective decisions in the long-term working solution of a project. So for our economic analysis, our results will be presented through Hellmeyer's catechisms, which are a series of questions formulated to evaluate potential risk in a project and develop risk mitigation strategies. These results encompass various aspects of stakeholder or project management, including scope, schedule, timeline, and stakeholder engagement. By being able to systematically address each of these catechisms, project managers within the Navy are able to gain insight and potential pitfalls and develop proactive solutions on how to counter these issues. Next, looking at net cash flow. Currently, the DoD typically takes on a low amount of risk to ensure that their cash flow remains positive, as they don't want to go seek additional congressional approval or have excessive financial issues, both of which can greatly increase the original intended scope and timeline of a project. Lastly, we look at payback period. With our proposed solution, it's important to know that an extension of the original payback period is not necessarily indicative of a failure of a project. We do expect to see some loss in the short term due to implementation of some of the more innovative and riskier projects. But when we're combining these projects with our new and ongoing ones, in the long term, we do expect to experience a positive financial benefit and overall benefit of return in the portfolio as a whole. Now I'll pass it off to Clay to talk about some more key takeaways.
Thanks, Nick. So our team reached a conclusion based on a quantitative analysis from the data obtained through our conducted interviews with our subject matter experts. Next, we found that by promoting a portfolio approach to the stage gate risk assessment framework in the Department of Defense acquisition process, it will both reduce costs and reuse information. Lastly, this ultimately allows the Department of Defense to both develop and analyze multiple projects simultaneously and turns failures into valuable learning experiences which all helps to deliver the most optimal outcome. And I'll pass it over to Declan to talk about our recommendation.
Thanks, Clay. The recommendation that the team had for the Acquisition Innovation Research Center was the adoption of a stage gate risk assessment framework used in tandem with portfolio theory. The stage gate framework that we have developed, the model as you can see here, is funnel shaped and goes through a series of periodic stage gate reviews to shrink down the number of projects that are still in the development portfolio. At each of these stages, a kill, hold, or go decision is to be made. If a kill decision is to be made, funding will be ceased, and all information that has been gathered up to this point should be stored in a reused information knowledge bank, able to be accessed at a later date. If a hold decision is to be made, the same thing should occur, but the ability. That's not good.
Keep on talking.
If a whole decision is to be made.
I know there's scripturally.
Yeah, the current progress of development should be halted until the resources needed or the pertinent need for that information occurs. If a go decision is to be made, the project should move forward along the development pipeline and continue to work towards becoming a final working product. Additionally, you can see that our portfolio has several different parts. The portfolio was intended to be flexible and the metrics were intended to be modifiable according to the specific needs of each individual project manager and each individual project. We have 4 categories here of differing degrees of technological innovation required for each project. We go from least risky to most risky, with continuous being the least risky, risk in this sense being the lack of likelihood of success of the project. So for example, a continuous solution would require a lot of technology, strategies, and approaches that have already been tried and true, proven very well. Whereas something that is revolutionary would represent what be like the ideal technological solution, looking at technology that is yet to be explored. It is critical to explore all of these in tandem so you can explore new technology while still guaranteeing that you have a final working solution and that there's still some sort of project there at the end of the day. Moving forward into our experience, the Capstone team was very grateful for all of our experiences throughout this project. We've learned a lot since 9 months ago when we first started working together and conducting the literature review. Conducted lots of interviews, as Clay mentioned, learning from a lot of really phenomenal people in a very diverse field, from academia to the private industry to various sectors within the government. And we're very grateful to everybody's network that we were able to leverage in order to do so. We certainly had to overcome some adversity to get to our final working recommendation, but we're very grateful to have had that opportunity. We'd like to extend our gratitude to everybody that's helped us get here. Thank you. Are there any questions?
What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome throughout this project?
So something that's rather unique about our project compared to the majority of the other ones that we're going to hear about today is that it's there's a lot less tangible data. We weren't necessarily given a large data set like other people due to the nature of Department of Defense acquisitions and general security clearance and NDA requirements. So everything that we developed up to this point was intended to be very flexible and able to be applied to a variety of different situations in order to combat that. But so some of that adversity being the fact that we had to be somewhat hypothetical, I guess would be good. Yes.
So I noticed that economic analysis was not a huge portion of this. I know you mentioned payback period. It's probably not atypical with many federal government clients. Did you find, in fact, that they were looking more for outcome-based decision-making rather than an economic analysis?
Yeah, especially because in most of the projects we're looking at, some of which are restricted, we couldn't actually see some of the budgetary information, but also just the scope of some of these projects, the amount of money they're spending in the billions is really difficult to quantify in a sense, but most of what we gathered from our interviews with some of these subject matter experts, they're mainly more focused on the outcomes of the project itself, not necessarily the actual financial implications that they were spending.
Very common Fed versus corporate.
So if this stage gate approach is implemented in the government, do you foresee a problem with there being a similarity between kill and hold, where the project get put on hold indefinitely versus getting like just killed?
I think there's that problem is somewhat inherent to doing anything with the government. Yes, things could certainly be on hold for a very long period of time. The hope, I think, is that with something put on hold, it's somewhat easier to come back to than something that's killed, with all the information from a killed project being stored into a knowledge bank that could be returned to later. Wouldn't necessarily be inconceivable to resume one of those projects, but ideally it kind of cuts down on the financial burden of whoever's funding it to be able to do that. Any more questions?
I see.
Yeah.
Morning, everyone. Today we'll be discussing how Carter can improve their data quality and governance, a joint effort between the Virginia Tech MSBA-BA program and Carter Machinery. First, to introduce the team. My name is Mitchell Keeney. I'm a spring 23 graduate from the Virginia Tech Pamplin College of Business, and I will be pursuing data analytics roles in the Northern Virginia area after graduation. I'm also the team lead for this effort. I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves briefly.
Hi, my name is Jin Lee, and I finished my undergrad study in business and communication at South Korea. And then before I joined this program, I worked as a financial brand marketer for 6 years.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily McCorkle. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing from Virginia Tech, and I currently serve as the Director of Undergraduate Analytics and Student Engagement within the College of Business.
Hello, I'm Ethan Mills. I graduated in the spring of 2023 with my finance degree from Virginia Tech. After graduation, I will be doing data analyst role.
The team would like to give a huge thank you to everyone involved in the process, to Ms. Chrissy Clark, Data Quality Program Manager, to Ms. Jennifer Avens, the Director of the Center for Business Analytics, and to Ms. Dr. Michelle Surratt, our Faculty Advisor. This effort would not be possible without you all, and the team truly thanks you. Carter Machinery is a heavy equipment dealer and the authorized Caterpillar dealer for Virginia, Maryland, DC, Delaware, and West Virginia. They specialize in heavy machinery and construction equipment. To give some project context, CAT is requiring all dealers to move towards a data-driven business strategy through the implementation of the Digital Excellence Program. Carter has already taken steps to address this, such as the implementation of data quality champions in each department to monitor CAT data quality conformance, and recognizes the need for standard operating procedures to standardize the customer information input process. This effort will be focused in the dealer trifecta portion of the Digital Excellence Program. It is important to note that the metrics that we evaluated as a team are more in-depth than trifecta, as Carter is trying to get ahead of the curve on any future updates to trifecta. For example, the phone number shown on the screen would be correct by trifecta standards, however incorrect by what we call Carter standards because of the parentheses at the front of the phone number. Now for further motivations, I'll turn it over to Jane.
Thanks, Mitch. Now I'd like to share about the challenges when it comes to data quality that Carter Machinery encountered. Carter Machinery has more than 30 locations in its business area, and most of their customers are small businesses. And these kind of results in frequent changes in customer data and also inconsistent entry. Of course, they have their data management system for each department, but they were developed independently and have different functions, which kind of data management is tricky. So our key question of this project is, despite all of these challenges, how can Carter Machinery implement data quality standards company-wide? So our team established two main objectives. The first one is by establishing standard operating procedure, we can determine what is the ideal data entry should look like and how we manage them. Also, by developing data quality metrics, which numerically measures current data quality, Carter machinery could measure the current data quality. And with the dashboard, Carter machinery also monitor their data quality on demand. And about our analysis, we first did benchmark research about how data quality management improve businesses. And we interviewed data quality champions of Carter machinery who are specific with data management and data collecting processes. And also we visited 4 locations of Carter machinery, including Salem headquarters, to meet sales representatives who meet customers every day. And now for the data quality exploration, I would like to turn it over to Mitch again.
Thank you, Jae-yoon. So as we dived a little deeper into the data quality exploration, the team developed an Excel visual basic for application code to determine non-conformance of previously mentioned Carter metrics. Now, for confidentiality reasons, the actual results of the analysis are hidden. However, the inputs analyzed were street address, state, zip code, phone number, and industry code. These insights, or this analysis, is also what we use to determine our insights, which Emily will now discuss further.
Thanks, Mitch. So to just highlight what our team has been working on over the last, I guess, 9 months now, through our benchmarking research, we found that the most successful companies utilized a parent customer number to really gather all of the customer information. This decreased the likelihood of duplicates, but also increased the customer loyalty and satisfaction. In addition, when we were looking through data entry standards across industries, we found that very specific and explicit instructions for data entry reduced the number of duplicates, but also minimized confusion with data entry. Through our many conversations with our data quality champions, we found that Carter machinery currently has existing standard works, but they vary across departments and across teams. Carter machinery is also using a number of systems throughout their organization, and so the training and the onboarding also varied across the teams. Through the data quality exploration that Mitch just shared, CAT is measuring Carter machinery on DEP metrics, and Carter is doing a phenomenal job. But as he mentioned, they want to go above and beyond and be proactive about creating those standard operating procedures. And so there's tremendous opportunity within phone numbers and with addresses, specifically around the formatting that we address in our recommendations. I'm going to now turn it over to Ethan to talk about why this is so critical for Carter's business moving forward.
Thank you, Emily. I would like to talk about the return on impact. First, looking at the key actions for success, and we'll look at the benefits for the customer and the dealer. The first step of the key action is prepare as the dealer and the customer sit down and figure out the problem at hand, which will help optimize the resources. Next, we'll look at the execution stage where the dealer will review the elements to help the customer minimize risk and avoid surprises. And then next, the dealer will do the following up stage to create a good line of communication between the dealer and the customer in case the customer needs to reach out. Next, I would like to talk about the return on impact, where we're looking at monetary value, initial cost, and benefits. First, monetary value, we look at improved data quality and enhanced data accuracy. Here, we want to have the data entries conform to a standard where a bad data entry could cost Carter money and any future analysis they plan on running in the future. Next, we'll look at the initial costs where they have to invest into the technology to meet these conformance standards and the user training. Next, we'll look at the benefits where we look at data entry and validation and increased job satisfaction, where Caterpillar has a ranking system at the end of the year. Every 2 years, they switch it. This is for the 2024-2025 year. The rankings, the higher up you are, the more benefits that they give to the dealer, Carter. I'd like to give it back to Emily for recommendations.
Thanks, Ethan. So our team has shared with you the research and the context and the benefits of our project. So now how can we help Carter Machinery take this to the next level and move towards a company-wide data quality process? So the first step for our team was to create an overall data entry standard. This was very specific and explicit, as we found in our research, very specific regarding the formatting, dashes in the phone numbers, specific around spaces and special characters in data entry, but also aligning address data entry to the USPS standards, again, to remove any duplicates and minimize any confusion. From there, our team expanded and enhanced a lot of the system instructions that were currently in place, again, to align with the data entry standards that we created. Our recommendations for Carter were to continue doing this with the other instructions that they have for the many other systems that they have in place. Carter is actually moving towards a new ERP system in 2025. So as they're developing that, we strongly recommended that they create an overall data entry standard, again, with very specific and explicit instructions so that everything aligns with the overall data entry standards. The next objective of our team was to create a data quality monitoring tool. So this is an example of a dashboard that our team created in partnership with Carter. Our recommendation is that Carter add a filtering option so that it filters between departments and locations so that they can constantly monitor opportunities for growth and enhancement within those separate divisions. So how can Carter really move towards a company-wide culture of data excellence? It requires all of the things that you see here, but I'd like to point out the monthly check-ins. In order for the company-wide culture to be towards data excellence, it requires data quality to be top of mind, but it also requires a collective ownership and a collective buy-in of quality, excellence, and innovation.
Over the last 9 months, the team has learned a ton, not only about inner teamwork, but also about how to be effective consultants. And so I'd like to share a few of the lessons that we've learned with you all today. First is be open. You might never know what you're gonna get yourself into or never have experienced it before, but it's always good to have an open mind and go into it thinking you're gonna do well. Second is ask questions. It's okay not to know the answer to everything. In fact, that's kind of why you're there, is because they don't even know. Third is be kind and be welcoming to all of your cohort mates. It's something that, teamwork and the lessons we can all share with each other is something that we can all carry on for the rest of our lives. So with that, thank you guys so much, and we'll take any questions.
What was the biggest value add for Carter?
Like I mentioned earlier, the ranking system, it's actually a metal category. And they do the rankings based on a calculated rankings that we're not allowed to say, but it's based off gold, silver, and bronze. And we really can't mention the benefits that are listed, but the higher up you are, so obviously gold, the more benefits you are able to be able to seize and take advantage of, which will ultimately help them stay competitive in the region by retaining the loyal customers and gaining new ones.
How are these data champions selected? What was the criteria to become data champions?
Yeah, so it was selected by our sponsor, and she had an idea of who she kind of wanted to be involved as a data quality champion. And kind of the selection criteria for it was to be well-versed in like data quality, to understand the importance of the data quality effort that they're undergoing right now and have been for a little bit now. And really just being able to be an effective communicator to the rest of their team to get the buy-in.
Did you find that those champions were also decision makers as well?
Some yes, some no. They were mainly department managers. And so take that as you will for their respective departments. They were decision makers, but they overall gave input to higher ups that were overall decision makers for the company.
So I would call this a squishy project.
Yes.
Right? No real defined, you couldn't see what it was that they needed on the front end. So I'd be curious to hear your perspective of how you got your hands around this, and then how, was there a model you used? What was it that got to the final recommendation?
Mike, if you'll define squishy project for those that are not familiar.
I just did.
A better way. So to answer that question, yes, so this is one of the softer, squishier projects. Really, our team spent a lot of time just having those conversations with our capstone sponsors. So what is it that you really want? What is the value added at the end of this project? And so again, lots of conversations. Really, the primary objective was to find out what are the pain points and how can we solve those pain points. You know, as we mentioned, Carter is doing a great job already in the measurements that they're being, you know, in the metrics that they're being measured, but they want to do a better job. You know, I think John Batesel mentioned that he wants to reach that platinum. So how can we take Carter from good to better? And so again, finding the pain points, how can we make Carter's life easier? How can we make it more efficient and effective in a way that solves problems that they don't even know?
Well, when Drew came onto this company and he made it very clear that this is not only a Caterpillar dealership, but it's a data company.
Yep. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
When you guys created your SOPs, was it garbage in, garbage out, the data quality coming in? Did you establish like a stick and a carrot for people?
Yes, so we'd scoured the internet for lots of different data quality standards. So we did industries that are similar industries, but then with my role being in higher ed, higher education, our model is very critical when it comes to data entry. And so
In the corner? They done?
yes, so looking at how specific do we have to get? And if a lot of our work was in formatting, so we'd have to say, okay, when you're entering a phone number, it's XXX dash XXX. So very, very detailed. You know, we found through the data quality exploration that we did, a lot of the data, according to CAT DEP metrics, was great. They were doing fine. But when it came to formatting, our sponsor said we need to identify the formats that don't align with what we want to do. And then the next phase for them is to completely do a rehaul and do the data cleaning. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wondered how they were getting people to commit to making sure the data is correct.
Very specific and explicit instructions.
Any other questions?
Thank you. On brand.
Hello, everyone. We're the FlexMetrics capstone team, and we'll be presenting our predictive analytics project to you. Before we begin, we'll start with some quick team introductions.
Hello, my name is Brendan Atkinson. I graduated from Southern Illinois University with a degree in mechanical engineering. After completion of this program, I plan to work as a design engineer for Collins Aerospace.
My name is Tyler Scott. I study computational modeling and data analytics at Virginia Tech, and upon graduation, I'll be working at EY doing technology consulting.
I'm Kayla Jones. I graduated from Virginia Tech with a psychology degree, and after graduating from this program, I'll be working as a consultant at NTT Data.
I'm Esther Wing. I graduated Virginia Tech with an undergraduate degree in business information technology, and I'll be joining FlexMetrics as data analyst.
My name is Isaac Moore. I graduated from Liberty University, studying business administration, and I'll also be joining the Flex team after I graduate.
We would like to give a big thank you to our capstone sponsors at FlexMetrics, especially Janet, Callan, and Don for all of the help they've provided us throughout this project. We'd also like to give a big thank you to our faculty advisor, Dr. Fraticelli, for all of the help that she's provided us as well. Our problem statement is how can FlexMetrics develop and deliver a method for predicting machine failures to its diverse client base in a way that's clear and actionable. To give some background, providing real-time, accurate tracking of manufacturing outputs ensures that manufacturers can maintain oversight over their production processes. FlexMetrics seeks to make life as easy as possible for manufacturers. They've helped do this so far through integrating software into machines to gather data on different metrics that these manufacturing companies can then use to make more informed business decisions. They've asked us to take on the next step by finding a way to implement predictive analytics to be able to prevent catastrophic machine downtime events from happening before they do. That being said, this introduces our project. I'll now pass it off to Esther to talk about project objectives.
Thank you, Kayla. So we began our initial analysis in September of 2023, which included most of our time researching our different methodologies to finalize our final solution. And in December of 2023, we started the data transformation process, which we worked really hard on to help us start off this project with the data that we had. Then we started developing our machine learning model in February of 2024 and initialized our dashboard in April of 2024. And in May, we finalized our recommendation. Our goal of this capstone was to help FlexMetrics integrate predictive analytics power into their current software. And the first part was the machine learning model development. As I said, we spent a lot of time working on the data transformation process, then also on fitting the model and testing the machine learning model. The next part was dashboard development, which we spent a lot of time on integrating the model results into our dashboard because we wanted this to be helpful to FlexMetrics clients in their daily shifts and their daily workflows. So this process was very important to help us to be able to develop the actionable insights using our visualizations and to help them understand what is happening. For our data transformation process, we began with formatting the data frame. We had a lot of data from our sponsor, FlexMetrics, and we had to use this data and to determine which metrics were actually significant to our model. We talked to expertise about it. We also talked to our sponsors, and we developed calculated variables, calculated metrics that would fit into our model, which I'll now pass it off to Tyler to explain more about our final data frame.
Thank you, Esther. This leads us to our final data frame, which consisted of 26 different unique metrics over the previous 5 shifts of data, which leads to a total of 130 variables. Now, we chose the previous 5 shifts of data because any figure beyond this 5 amount did not add to the predictive power of our model, so we chose to only include the previous 5 shifts to predict the upcoming shift and whether there would be a catastrophic failure or not. Next, we looked at which algorithm we were actually going to choose. Now we chose or tested multiple different types of algorithms, neural networks, random forest as you see on the screen, and different curations within these, and we ultimately landed on the random forest algorithm. Now what this is an assortment of unique decision trees that each uniquely predict the target outcome. And then of these decision trees, whichever prediction is the most prevalent is the overall model prediction. So for example, if I have a model with 10 decision trees and 7 predicted a catastrophic failure and 3 predicted no failure, then the overall model would predict a catastrophic failure. Now to actually evaluate our model performance, we use a confusion matrix to classify results. And we focused on 2 specific metrics. The first of which was our false flag rate, which you can see on the screen with our confusion matrix is calculated by taking 7 divided by 72 plus 7, which gives us our 8.86 false flag rate. Now, what this is actually measuring is of the days that there was no catastrophic failure, how many days did we inaccurately say that there would be a failure? We wanted to minimize this as much as possible when talking with our sponsor, because if managers were told that there's an issue with their machine and they go try and fix it and there's actually nothing wrong, it would decrease engagement with the tool and they would be more likely to completely disregard using the tool. And so we wanted to minimize the occurrence of this while maybe potentially missing other predictions of failure. The next metric that we wanted to optimize is our true positive rate. Now, this is of the times that we predicted there was a catastrophic failure, how many days or shifts was there actually a catastrophic failure? Now on the screen, the 72% metric is calculated by taking 18 divided by 18 plus 7, which gives us 72%. Now we want to focus on optimizing this metric as much as possible because this is where the real value of our deliverable comes from, is being able to predict when a machine is going to have significant amounts of downtime. This is where large losses of money, large amounts of stress, and a bunch of different issues occur. And so with these two metrics, the true positive rate and our false flag rate, optimizing both, we are comfortable with our results along with talking with our sponsor, and they're comfortable with how the model is performing. And so we moved on to the pipeline stage, which I'll now pass off to Isaac to discuss further.
Thank you, Tyler. So we took this Python code and we directly connected it to a SQL database. From here, we could set up a task manager auto refresh. So before every single shift, Flex has the most recent data, therefore making it the most accurate prediction that we could give them. From there, it's just a direct Power BI data flow connection. Every morning, they'll get a Power BI report that shows them the most recent data with our most recent predictions. So this will be the actual Power BI report that we want the managers to see first thing the day before they start their shift. We want this top table to be the main focus. So here we'll have the area, the equipment, and then its respective risk level, and a top predictor of why our algorithm thinks that machine will go down for the day. So the risk level is split up between low risk, medium risk, and high risk. These will be color coded with green, yellow, and red. Low risk is anything from 0 to 50, medium is anything from 50 to 80%, and then a high risk is anything above 80%. For the manager who wants a little more detail, he can put his mouse right over the risk level and it'll show the exact percentage of what our algorithm thinks that machine's going to go down for the day. Then below we'll have like an area portfolio. This will be somewhat of a filter. If you want to click through into the specific area or the specific risk level, it'll limit that table above and it's easier to scroll through and see what's actually going to go down for the day. On the next page, we have a drill through page. This will show the equipment name, its risk level, who's working on the machine for that day, and the job ID. Under that, we'll have 3 predictors for our algorithm. It might give them a little insight as to why that machine could go down for the day. Below that, we have a failure rate trend. This will show the last 5 shifts and what our algorithm has predicted for those 5 shifts. If we see a trend line go up, that might be a little more of an indicator for the operator that today might be the day that we get a big catastrophic failure. We need to check something out. Once we figure that out, there's a D1 Pareto that will show reason codes for why that machine has been going down recently. But in the table below, it'll show that reason code, how many times it happened, the average amount of times it happened, and the duration that happened. And it'll show the operator that was working that machine for the day. For the manager who's looking, they might have a little insight as to what it's been going down with or what's been going on with that machine recently, and maybe get a little more insight as to why the machine could be going down for the day. So now I'll pass it off to Brendan to talk about key benefits.
Thank you, Isaac. So we have several major benefits that we like to highlight with the result of this project. The first one is that we have increased the product value for Flex Metrics. And what we mean by that is that not only have we added value for the Flex Metrics brand itself, but we've also added value to the clients who use their product as well. So like said before, unexpected downtime is very costly for a manufacturer to deal with. And so instead of reacting to downtime when it occurs, we are now able to be proactive and catch it likely before it occurs, or at least mitigate it before it becomes too costly. Our next key benefit is that we've increased the user engagement all around with this software. And so we have supervisors and managers who have more of an incentive to use the Flex Metrics OS than they previously had. And for the operators, they have more of an incentive to input quality data into their system whenever something does occur. Our last key benefit is that we have introduced Flex Metrics to the world of predictive analytics. You can see this as like the next big step toward from data monitoring to data making predictions. And so with this, we're able to bolster the Flex Metrics brand and provide them with plenty of opportunity moving forward to create more predictive analytics products. In addition to this, we have 2 new employees for Flex Metrics that were from this team. They gained 2 great new employees who have worked on this project since the inception. And so moving forward, they will be leading the charge on any sort of new project or new product that Flex Metrics wants to put forward in the predictive analytics space. And lastly, we have our final comments, our takeaway from this. We think that it's an excellent thing that we have been able to use what we've learned in our classes to develop this project and actually put it towards good use in a practical real world setting. And so for that, we're quite thankful. And with that, this concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank the CBA staff, our faculty advisor, and the Flex Metrics team for all of their support whenever developing this project. And at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions.
Going back to your confusion matrix, I know you touched on this a little bit. I'm just a little curious kind of what went into the trade-off between
try to minimize like the false flag rate versus, I noticed there's a fair amount of instances where you predicted a negative for catastrophic failure, but there actually was a positive catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
And I always kind of went into the trade-off between those.
Yeah, so that was talking with our sponsor, and Flex currently has not necessarily an issue, but there are some people engaged with the Flex software in the manufacturing world where it moves very slowly and they like paper and pencil and very outdated methods. And so when you introduce new software, you want to cater it to what's going to get them to actually engage with it as much as possible. And so we felt that if we had those errors of a false flag, it was much more likely for them to just completely disregard the tool. So that's something we've talked about in the future, where if that engagement increases and they're actually using our tool, then we could manipulate our model to then catch more of those positive days that we're missing, and then that would naturally induce more false flags as well.
How do you foresee the skills of this project to eventually translate?
So 2 of us are working at Flex. And with Don, our sponsor here, and also Jay, the CEO of the Flex team here today, I would like to say that we've learned a lot on project management and how to work on something that you don't know how to do right now. I know for some smaller startup tech companies, there are a lot of different hats that we both have to wear, and we're both very thankful on the different problems and roadblocks we've encountered during this capstone project. And it helped us understand what it is like to not be able to do something at this moment, at this time. You're not just gonna handed a project by your teachers, your professors, and telling you A, B, C, this is what you need to do, and it'll get done. There were a lot more going on behind the scenes than what we've talked about. And we're very thankful for everything that we have learned. And actually, we've learned a lot from Dr. Sharp's and Dr. Fashli's classes that we actually inputted and used during our project. So, yeah.
Go ahead. So I'll tie into what you were saying. You guys are all gonna go out into the work world, and a lot of your bosses, particularly if you're in the consulting world, are gonna say, go get us more work. Right? There's a soft side to that, and that's the customer relationship skills that this project really enhances. Now, it's relatively easy when you're dealing with a good guy like Don Robb and Jay Foster. I do a handshake deal with those guys. Those of you that understand the business world, that's a very high compliment. So what I would ask you to think about, all of you in this room, yes, you're being hired largely for your technical skills right now. But as you move up the chain, I'm not gonna say that's less important, you're gonna have to start using other skills. So think about that. That's a real compliment to you two that these folks hired.
And since we have these folks here, I wonder if you have anything to share from the sponsor side.
Well, this team was phenomenal. We threw a lot at them with any project like this. I'm sure every team in here could say what their biggest challenge is, what the heck are we supposed to do? I mean, how do we scope this thing? And they just did a phenomenal job of taking, you know, our suggestions, all the data, and coming up with the methodology. They had an unfair advantage because they did an internship with us last summer, actually spent time at some customer sites to really start to get a feel for what this product is, and more than anything, began to understand how what they were going to do impacts. You go into everything that you buy is produced in a manufacturing facility somewhere, and to see what really happens in the world of manufacturing, I think was incredibly valuable to them. But look, it's just a case where I think we had a pretty well scoped project, a phenomenal team. The Callan, who is not here, Callan Garst, was just a great mentor to them. And it just clicked, and we have a new product feature in our product suite. So it's a great win-win.
Woo!
And we got two new great.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're the HP Capstone team, and we're excited to present Bridging the Technological Divide, broadening opportunities for K through 12 students in gentrified Austin, Texas. I'll kick us off with some brief introductions. My name is Ayman Balafia. I'm from Arlington, Virginia. I received my Bachelor of Science in Public Health from Virginia Tech last May, and this coming fall I will start at Guidehouse as an associate consultant.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jake Facciani. I'm from Roanoke, Virginia. I graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in marketing management. And after I finish up my degree, I plan on working for a creative and innovative marketing company.
Hi, I'm Danny Villarreal. I'm from Springfield, Virginia. I graduated last May with a management degree from Virginia Tech. And after graduation, I will be a full-time consultant with KCIC.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Walsh. I graduated from Virginia Tech last year with a degree in management consulting. And post-graduation, I plan to move back to the DC metro area and pursue data analyst and consulting roles.
So over the course of the last 9 months, we've had the privilege of working with Sandy Waller, Tom Persons, and Mara Edelin, as well as their executive assistants, Brandon Petrina and Joyce Derrick, and we want to thank them for their continued support and incredible leadership throughout the year. We also want to thank the CBA staff and our faculty advisor, Dr. Eli Jameson, for their support as well. So to kick off with a brief overview of the project, major redevelopment efforts in Austin, Texas are displacing predominantly African-American and Latino students into lower funded communities and schools as a result of the rising cost of living. And with that, this is widening educational and technological disparities. And so in an effort to address their corporate social responsibility, HP has tasked us with figuring out ways they can enhance support for these underserved students in a culturally sensitive manner. And so to move on to our team objectives, we have delving into the impacts of gentrification, identifying the location of Title I schools in their urban proximity, evaluating existing low-cost or free STEM programs for students, establishing a sustainable blueprint for future replication, and leveraging HP's resources, including their internal talent and technologies. So the first phase of our project consisted of developing a deep understanding of the demographic that we're working with. And so we decided to focus on students from Title I schools, which are public institutions where at least 40% of students qualify for free or reduced lunch. And we were able to leverage Tableau as a resource to visualize all 62 Title I schools in the area. And in our discussions with DEIB experts, we were able to learn that when gentrification is happening in a city like Austin, local governments like to cluster a lot of their low-income residents into specific zip codes, which is why you see more Title I schools in some areas and none in others.
In order to have an effective educational environment, not only do we have to craft a great curriculum, have great instructors, and find students, we also need to make sure that everything is legally compliant and accessible for everybody. Because of this, we look into Texas legal research to make sure that all programs we have will be compliant. Within this, we had to find out that all activities have to cater towards the development within the children that are in the program. There needs to be a specific state license for every single program that we have. All staff have to have the equivalent of a high school GED, and there needs to be at least 30 square feet of space for each child that's in the facility. And now I'll pass it off to Danny and Sean for our recommendations.
Thank you, Jake. So our first recommended solution is a boot camp and an after-school program that would be led and sponsored by HP. Our second recommended solution is to collaborate with already established STEM programs in the Austin area. And our third recommended solution is boosting technology infrastructure. Our blueprint for our second recommended solution includes topics to ensure the sustainability of the solution. The first aspect, diversity, includes prioritizing Title I school students with these programs. The curriculum itself would be enhanced by HP employees that would be volunteering their time for these programs. the venue itself, organizing field trips. It's a great way to engage with these students in an in-person aspect. The logistics, establishing designated positions to oversee these programs. And then the engagement, assessing the employee hours used per month for these programs. And lastly, the legality is ensuring the contracts and all the safety regulations are aligned. The partner options for solution number 2 include Mad Science of Austin and San Antonio, Club SciKids Austin, You Teach Austin, as well as Snapology. All these partner options are a really great option just because they have different age ranges, grade ranges, and are already established within the communities. And for example, Snapology has a scholarship for women that are pursuing STEM-related careers after graduation, another great way that they're already established within the community. I'll go ahead and pass it to Sean.
As stated, we moved forward with post solution number 2, which is to team up and create partnerships with already established STEM camps in Austin, Texas. The first of these reasons being that it utilizes their expertise, as these programs have already created the curriculum and have the experience of working one-on-one with children in the Austin area to create a great environment and learning experience for them. It also optimizes the labor resources and expertise for HP, as the employees each have 4 hours of allotted volunteer service hours per month. This will allow them to come and go as they please per month without breaking over their overall bandwidth of their actual job description, be able to work on this project as they please. This will also foster connections within the community, as these STEM camps already have the students that they work with within the community. This will allow the employees of HP to work one-on-one with these students and create a strong bond in a type of role model scenario between them. This will also expand the reach, as we are working to do a partnership. This will allow HP and the STEM companies to reach across a broader audience than they may have been able to do if they are working by themselves. It's a cost-efficient and scalable option, as the cost of this project is within HP's budget and can be broken down further into a per student scale. Lastly, this will achieve substantial educational improvements, as we will like to test and monitor how well these students are learning the technology curriculums that we are teaching them, and overall just seeing how it benefits them in the classroom and their future. As this project is not necessarily a monetary return on profit that we're looking to create, instead we're looking to make an impact within the community. So we decided to move forward with the return on impact to monitor how we actually impact the students that are going through the programs. The first of this is to do a feedback session to talk and discuss with the employees of HP and the students participating to see what we can do each year to actually improve the program from an operational and internal standpoint, as well as doing pre-test, midpoint test, and post-test to measure the impact. And like we said, actually see the improvement of knowledge that these students are gaining from before and after the program. Looking back on it, we would like to thank the CBA staff for bringing our team together, as we're all from different backgrounds and have different undergraduate degrees. We felt that this really helped us all have good understanding and have different viewpoints of how to approach this problem, but coming together as a team really benefited and helped us create this optimal solution. Additionally, we'd also like to thank HP and the CBA staff again for giving us the opportunity to travel to our client headquarters and providing us with this opportunity to be in a real life consulting problem and move forward with it over the last 9 months. We'd like to thank everyone for listening to our presentation today, and now opening the floor up for questions.
So one, phenomenal job. I always love this project. You know, from my experience in working with DEIB and College Access, and I know my colleagues here would agree, you guys did a great job. From your experience, what were some of the most challenging aspects of this project?
Yeah, I think when they just came to us with the problem of, gentrification, that's not an issue that you can just solve immediately. And so our project is actually the first step in a 10-year blueprint that HP is doing. So when they came to us with, like doing a project to address gentrification, that's a, boil the ocean question, like a squishy question. So I think it was getting in the right mindset of figuring out like what gentrification is. We looked into different cities to see like what gentrification was doing to different children in the cities, seeing how it was affecting their life. And then after we figured out that, discovering how that we could further just keep progressing within the project. I think also having like a 10-month time span was like a great amount of time that we could keep seeing like it was kind of funny, like seeing where the solution would go and then it wouldn't go there and then it would go back. And, it's a big problem, but I'm really happy that we got to work on it and like pretty confident that this will end up materially improving a lot of children's lives eventually. So I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it.
Hey, so this actually sounds very familiar to the AmeriCorps program. I don't know if you guys are familiar with AmeriCorps at all. But you answered my question with how long that this is gonna take, so like 10 years, but don't know if you're still working with them, but that also might be an option for them as far as a partnership. Partnering with like a literacy coalition in Austin, and that's federally funded as well.
So we'd love to talk to you about that. Yeah.
It's called AmeriCorps State Investment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to connect on that. And like something we were telling the HP people too is like, we want to all keep hearing about how the project is going. And if they ask us questions, get back to them. I think the project's kind of our baby. So, yeah.
Very big in Florida, so I think it would transition really nicely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
How are you guys gonna measure the success again from the tests? So the pre-test, the test, and then another test?
Yeah, so return on impact is like the term that we decided to move forward with. In the short term, kind of just doing the like pre, post, and midpoint test to see how the students perform after they've gone through the program. But with the partnerships, we're working with K-5 and then 6 through 8. So there's just opportunities like for the older kids doing resume workshops, case competitions, and so creating more relevant opportunities that would stick with them and be able to put it on their resume. Or with the younger students, more of just learning sessions and kind of some programs like basic coding competitions and things that would be able to give them a foundation of knowledge to move forward with.
Are the educators held to standards as well?
It's definitely, well, the educators are mainly going to be working with the camp already. So these are people that have already an educational background. And that's like I guess the strategic advantage of partnering with already existing STEM programs in Austin is that the HP people that would be coming in and volunteering, they already have like the HP side and they have their technical know-how, but the people that are within the programs already have the educational knowledge and background and standards.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention and your excellent questions so far this morning. We're gonna take about a 10-minute break. While you're taking a break, you can ask more questions, chat with each other. We're gonna play a little video of some of the quotes that our cohort have said to each other. All right, I'm so glad there's such a great conversation going on. I hope that you'll come to Maroon Door after and continue the conversations. We would like for everyone to get seated. We're going to get started with our next group of presentations, beginning with Inorganic Ventures. So if you could please have a seat and we'll have more time to chat soon.
Morning, everyone. We are the Inorganic Ventures capstone team working with Dr. Brian Alexander to assess the viability of implementing a machine learning software into their everyday workflows. First, we'll start with some introductions, starting with myself. My name is Jamie Bailey. I got my bachelor's degree from Virginia Tech in public relations with a minor in business and organizational leadership. After the program, I plan on moving to Phoenix, Arizona, where I will be the assistant softball coach at Grand Canyon University.
Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Bratz. I studied environmental data science at Virginia Tech. And after this program concludes, I'll be joining the Hazen and Sawyer team as a senior business analyst.
Hey everybody, I'm Max Gomez and also study here during my undergraduate time, studying business and information technology and focusing on supply chain. After graduation, I'll be moving out to Baltimore to do finance with Clark Construction.
Morning, everyone. My name is Alexander Tass, and I graduated last year with a bachelor's in business information technology. And after the program ends, I'll be moving up to Reston, Virginia to be an associate business analyst at Applied Information Sciences.
Feel free to stop us throughout the presentation to ask any questions you may have. We'd now like to express our gratitude to Brian and Dr. Onushara for their essential contributions and guidance throughout the entirety of our project. I'll now be handing it over to Axel, where he will tell us a little bit more about Inorganic Ventures.
Thank you, Jamie. So a bit about Inorganic Ventures. They started in 1985, originally in New Jersey, and later relocated to Christiansburg, Virginia. A bit about what they specialize in is providing certified reference materials, and it essentially revolves around inorganic chemistry. The industries they serve cater towards environmental testing. So you can imagine pharmaceuticals, mining, water, anything related to anything around inorganic chemistry. And the reputation that they've garnered over the past decades is for providing high quality materials as well as very impressive technical expertise in their fields. I'll like to pass it on now to Scott for the project introduction.
Thank you, Axel. To ensure a successful project, the first step was to understand the Inorganic Ventures business model. So this came with an on-site tour of the facility to understand the ins and outs of the business. Next, we started to explore the data set that Brian gave us. After, we started to learn about the machine learning software that we used throughout the project. And lastly, we assessed the capabilities of the software through quantitative as well as qualitative benefits. I'll be passing off to Alex for our problem statement.
Thank you, Scott. When looking at the problem statement, we want to see how using machine learning could make the lives of chemists much easier with the time it takes to do their work. By utilizing the machine learning software for model prediction, it would reduce the time significantly for the chemists to actually finish their work. Also, the utilization of the software would put Inorganic Ventures ahead of its competitors in terms of efficiency and innovation. Now, at this point, it's important to get a good understanding of machine learning before actually moving on. First, machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, and it's probably defined as a machine's capability to imitate intelligent human behavior, in this case, the software trying to imitate the chemist's behavior. And there are three main functions to any machine learning system: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. Descriptive functions use data to explain what happened. Predictive functions use data to explain what will happen. And prescriptive functions suggest what actions to take based on the data. And all three of these functions are core to what makes the software what it is. And with that, I'll pass it off to Jamie, who will talk about our team objectives.
Thank you, Alex. Our team set several objectives to obtain the essential information for developing our project. The first being assessing the machine learning software's viability and learning how to actually use the software. We dedicated our time to learning its features and capabilities, which allowed us to be more proficient and confident in its use later on. Next, we wanted to make sure that the data Brian had provided us with was clean and formatted appropriately beforehand. Once those first two objectives were met, we spent each week creating different models, reporting those models back to the IV and machine learning software teams, receiving feedback and documenting that entire process each week. After many weeks of this process, we took what we had learned and provided a framework to Inorganic Ventures to help them and lead them to build their final model. And finally, to wrap up the progress we've made over the past 9 months, we wanted to explore the benefits of implementing this software into their daily operations. And this allowed us to reflect on our own work and assess where there's more work to be done. Moving on to the methods we used for the process of our analysis, we began with using Python code to randomly sample our data, as well as Excel to build and store our data sets, and of course, the machine learning software to feed those data sets into to get some predictions. We also had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Amanda Miller and Dr. Leslie Owens from Inorganic Ventures to get a little bit more information about their company, which allowed us to perform our last analysis, which was our time savings analysis, which just answers the question of how much time is actually being saved by the software. Moving on to the stages of analysis, we began with our first stage, which was our exploration stage. The second was our testing stage. The third was our developmental stage. And finally, the fourth was our evaluation stage. And I'll be handing it over to Scott, so he will go into a little bit more about our benefits of implementing the software.
Thank you, Jamie. Over the next 2 slides, I'll take you through our economic analysis that we completed during our project. If you take a look at the screen, you can see a time save equation represented by 3 different parameters. And we had help from Brian to actually develop these three parameters. The first being the average decision time of a chemist. Now, there's a wide range that the chemist can make decisions in, so we thought that the average would be best suited for this. The second parameter was the machine learning decision time. And then lastly, the last parameter is the number of requests per month. And although we cannot share you the exact time that it was saved, we do want to say that there is a significant amount of time that implementing the machine learning software into workflows will do for Inorganic Ventures. Second part is the value created from the time savings aspect. So if you take a look at the screen again, you can see our new value created equation. And this basically takes the time saved per year. So that would be the value that you saw on the last slide. And you multiply this by the value of time per minute. And again, we can't disclose the information. However, it is a positive value, and that will be significant for Inorganic Ventures. Now we'll be moving on to some of the qualitative benefits that implementing this machine learning software will have on Inorganic Ventures. The first being increases in employee satisfaction. Now that the chemists will not be doing such monotonous or repetitive tasks, they'll have the ability to create value in other ways for the company. Second is an increase in decision making. The machine learning software is not meant to displace chemists. It's more meant to help them and make decisions faster. And then lastly, there is room for innovation. Right now, we are only looking at implementing it into the chemist side. However, the software is dynamic and it has the ability to be implemented into other workflows in Inorganic Ventures to make everyone's life easier, not just the lives of the chemists. Now I'll be passing it over to Axel for some of our final recommendations.
Thank you, Scott. So we confidently recommend to Inorganic Ventures that they should be implementing this machine learning software into their daily workflows for the following benefits. First, we've mentioned how this will benefit the chemist on a day-to-day basis, but if you begin to realize anyone directly or indirectly associated with these chemists will begin to see improvements in their own workflows, since there would be a reduction in repetitive tasks and more time to engage with the customers, which will lead to more sales at the end. Next benefit being that Inorganic Ventures is in a unique position to actually leverage machine learning. And I say this because machine learning needs a lot of good quality data to make good quality decisions. And from Inorganic Ventures' decades worth of experience in this field, as well as the good quality that they've gone from raw data in the past to more advanced analytics like Power BI and now shifting to machine learning, we believe that they are in a good position to be early adopters in the space and in the industry to reap the benefits. The final benefit that we've seen is that really goes in the last two, which we believe that they'll see an enhancement in their competitive advantage because of the reduction in tasks I was mentioning, more time to gain more value for the organization, as well as being able to see what the benefits will lead to when you use machine learning and using your data to work for you. But now I'd like to wrap up with some final comments. Over the last 9 months, we've had the privilege of working alongside Inorganic Ventures, the MSBA leadership team, as well as the machine learning team that we were using to really hone in on this capstone project and seeing what the viability of a machine learning software would be in an organization like Inorganic Ventures. We appreciate everyone's time for helping us and for everyone's time today for hearing us out about what we learned. And we'd like to open the floor for questions now. Got one?
Do I have one? Yeah. So, not knowing this company and not knowing, the project, so to say, what jumps out at me is time saving seems like a very natural economic benefit, let's call it. Was that true from the very beginning? Or did you discover that time savings was something that they were interested in?
Yeah, so I would say like our initial thoughts when we were going into it, we we're assuming like it was some kind of profitability, like how much value they'll gain out of it. But we've seen that, we mentioned that it would just be in the chemist, like a one specific department, but Inorganic Ventures is beyond just chemists. There's multiple departments, but since we were just focused on this one part, it made the most sense to just look at what the time savings aspect would be. So then that would be easier to look at other departments later on, and also being able to look at the profitability side of it as well.
And it's relatively easy to get a dollar value in time savings,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah,
great job, thank you. I just want to get your assessment. How well do you think the software can perform when you actually decrease the amount of data that you feed it, can it give, basically appropriate business results, even if you decrease the amount of information that you're using?
I can take this one. I think the beauty of the software that we chose and that we worked with you about was that the actual software is excellent at making decisions on really small pieces of data or noisy data or even sporadic data. So I think that there won't be any issues with creating a model, say in the future, with less data. And I do think that even a model that has less data will still provide significant benefits.
Going on with the data viewpoint, what concrete recommendations do you have to improve formatting and the integrity of a data set?
I can take this one. So it's kind of touching on something that Brian really helped us out with. And what I like to say is in the beginning, a lot of the data that we had, specifically the variables, might have been categorical. So you can think of like text boxes or anything like this, not necessarily concrete numbers. And we saw that once we started talking to the company that Inorganic works with to format their data sets, we began to shift a lot of the variables over to continuous, and this kept bumping up the data quality significantly each time. So I believe if you continue like that trend of turning things into continuous data, you'll begin to see a lot of improvements in the data quality within the software. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great start to their day. Today, we're going to explore grading, assessing generative AI. Next, I'll pass it on to Nick for introductions.
Hey everyone, so my name is Nicholas Kidd. I'm from Toms River, New Jersey. My undergraduate major at Virginia Tech was business information technology. And after the completion of this program, I'll be looking for a job in strategy consulting.
Hi, I'm Annie Wu. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. My undergraduate major was also business information technology from Virginia Tech. And after this program, I will be a technology consultant in Tyson's Corner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Campos. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. My undergrad was in economics at the University of Miami, Florida. And after the completion of this program, I will be a business analyst.
My name is Anthony Vo. I'm from Annandale, Virginia. My undergraduate major at Virginia Tech was business information technology. And after the completion of this program, I'll be planning to be a consultant.
My name is Len Chitwood. I'm from Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia. I received my undergraduate last year in criminology, and after the completion of this program, I'll be looking for work in crime analytics.
Before we get started, we just want to thank everyone who's been guided and supported our project throughout the year. So first, we'd like to start with our capstone sponsor, Edward McClarney. Next, we'd like to thank our faculty advisor, Dr. Andrew McKinley, who was a huge help in the ROI portion of our project. Last, we'd like to thank the executive director of the MSBA program, Jay Winkler, and the rest of the CBA staff. Now I'll pass it to Sophia to get us started.
Thanks, Nick. So with generative AI, we see it evolving immensely, especially over the past year with ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, and we slowly see that being integrated into the workplace. But the issue with that is that there are possibilities of hallucinations and incorrect outcomes. And that brought us to our key question: how can NASA encourage the integration of generative AI into their operations to enhance their mission outcomes? And now I'm going to pass it off to Lynn.
Thanks, Sophia. And I'll get a little bit into our project introduction. Our project begins with a thorough understanding of the current state and capabilities of AI technologies, examining any possible techniques that could be used as a framework to enhance NASA's mission and scientific research. Next, technique identification. This process involved looking at steps that met the current needs for NASA, but also held the potential for future scalability and iteration. The 5 techniques that we felt best fit these needs were human judgment, criteria-based assessment, AI versus AI voting, and standardized testing. With our 5 techniques identified, we dove deep into research, examining any possible use cases or case studies to assess possible challenges or possible goals that we could get from these techniques. And lastly, based off our findings, we've got several comprehensive recommendations
that we'll touch on a little bit later into our presentation. I'll now pass things over to Anthony to begin discussion on our 5 techniques.
Thank you, Lynn. This is our 5 techniques composing of our overall framework. I would like to begin with human judgment. Human judgment is a human in the loop evaluation system where, like the name implies, the human's there to test for coherence of a given output. This is due to the fact that although generative AI can produce fast results, it misses like crucial details, emotional impact, and creativity. The best 2 methodologies to conduct human judgment are through a tailored rubric and subject matter expert. With the tailored rubric, the user can have a certain set to look over the given output, making sure everything's correct and further improve the output if needed. With the subject matter expert, it allows as sort of a gatekeeper to prevent any knowledge gaps and disruptions. And with the subject matter expert, it allows to pass on for the next part of the step. Next, I'd like to pass it on to Sophia for criteria-based assessment.
Thanks, Anthony. So for criteria-based assessment, we really wanted to introduce this by using predefined benchmarks and criteria to assess the outputs of our generative AI. And the reason we did this was to have something to not only use with human-based judgment, but the rest of our techniques. And the 2 things that we saw most important was to look at the accuracy versus precision. Accuracy being how close our results yielded to the true positive, while precision being how consistent our results were. And the reason for this was the methodologies to set these benchmarks to see the overall trustworthiness of our generative AI outputs. Now passing it off to Nick.
Thank you, Sophia. So this technique is AI versus AI, which is essentially a comparative analysis between multiple AI models. So this approach allows us to see how multiple models would react to receiving the same exact question or prompt. So the purpose of this technique is to find those strengths and weaknesses across AI models. So when we understand how each approaches problem solving, we can better choose which to use in our own specific use cases. So the way this is done is by simultaneously querying multiple AI models with the same exact question or prompt. This can be further enhanced by then allowing those AI models to then cross-evaluate their responses with each other. This not only helps in error or bias detection, but it also can help to create a collaborative environment across AI models to learn and grow from each other. Now I'll pass it to Andy to talk about AI voting.
Thank you, Nick. Our next technique of AI voting refers to a methodology where multiple AI models are generating their own individual predictions or decisions. After that, we'll compare the outputs of each, and the purpose of this is to assess the accuracy, reliability, and robustness of each of these models and hopefully leverage the diversity of more than one. So formally, this can be referred to as an ensemble method where these models are being trained with the same data set with various parameters, and after that, their outputs are combined using something called a voting mechanism, such as majority weighted or soft voting. Next, Lynn will talk about our last technique of standard testing.
Thanks, Andy. I'll talk about our last technique, standardized testing. Standardized testing in AI seeks to measure the capabilities of general intelligence. This goes far and beyond just the conventional exam style questions such as the MCAT or the LSAT, in which AI is performed traditionally very well in. AI also now outperforms human in creativity tests and standard divergent thinking tests. Tailoring these styles of tests to NASA's unique needs can allow for better decision-making and allow for maintaining high ethical standards across all fronts of AI operation. Human AI collaboration and mission integration. AI can play a vital role in mission simulations, modeling complex scenarios for both expected and unexpected scenarios that could arise in space in a risk-free virtual environment. Lastly, the use of benchmarks. Standardized testing utilizes a combination of traditional AI benchmarks and custom scenarios that NASA could face to allow for the AI technique to be graded and assessed for the outputs that it releases. Now I'll pass things over to Anthony to begin session on recommendations.
Thank you, Lynn. So after a careful consideration, we'd like to present our 3 recommendations of tailored rubric, ROI follow-up, and courses and tutorials. With the tailored rubric, it will be easy for NASA to roll out and assess and be accessible to every member within NASA. Next, with our ROI follow-up, was in our report, we discussed how a coding assistant would be useful. And then with this experiment, we can see further return on investment potential bottlenecks. And finally, with courses and tutorials, not everyone in the agency has the same amount of knowledge within the generative AI space. So we believe with courses and tutorials rolling out in a bi-monthly setting, it would allow everyone to have like similar amount of knowledge will with that. Next, I'd like to go on to our reflections. So this was a very interesting and difficult project. As you all know, generative AI has evolved and progressed a lot. This is a very emerging and disruptive technology where not everyone can see where we're going. And every time we found a solution, there was a new update where we had to figure out. So scoping it out was very difficult to see. Finally, I'd like to go to our acknowledgements. Thank you to the CBA staff and our sponsor, Edward McLaren. This has been a very difficult and interesting project, and we shot to reach the sky, but hopefully we landed on the moon today. Thank you.
So this is, like you said, an important emerging topic across several companies, including those in the room, I'm sure. In addition to trying to determine kind of the best software to use and to train employees on, did you have any discussion or exploration of policies around the use of AI?
So I would say we weren't necessarily looking for a specific AI to use for NASA, of course, but just like we assessed our early stages of research looking at various softwares, and we kind of wanted to figure out which one or what is the most unique feature from ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. What makes that unique from the next guy? So we kind of used that, and I wouldn't say there was kind of just hard figuring out what made them different, like policy wise. They're not going to come out and say like, oh, this is why our software is better, or they're going to try to say why it's better, but necessarily if that's true. I'd say the biggest policy thing is the ethical standards of just making sure there's no data breaches, what input you can what information you can put into your AI software without there being a risk for a data breach or anything like that. So I say that's the biggest policy concern, would just be information input.
So what occurs to me is you're not seeing your presentation to NASA. Presenting something to a C-suite may be different than presenting it to a technical team. So I'm curious, given knowing Ed McLarney and his group, was your presentation a bit more technical to a technical team, or was it a little bit more high level? Am I making sense?
Yeah, so for our framework, what we propose to do, it is very high level, and the fact that we wanted to apply to many different teams at NASA and not to specific use cases per se. We didn't have access to proprietary data from NASA, so kind of what Ed wanted to see in the rest of the C-suite was just a general framework of techniques to assess AI that can apply to software engineers, people in HR, data analysts, things like that.
So you didn't have a bunch of NASA scientists picking apart your presentation?
They were in the room, yes.
Yeah. There you go. All right.
Any other questions?
Morning, everybody. We are the Noble Reach Capstone Group, and today we're going to be presenting about an entrepreneur talent matching system. My name is Alton Mitchell. Prior to coming to Virginia Tech, I studied economics at Brown University, and following this program, I'll be taking a gap.
Hello, my name is Brian Bogert. I graduated from Virginia Tech with degrees in industrial systems engineering and political science, and I am currently seeking opportunities to integrate diverse disciplines and promote social good.
Hello, everyone. My name is Grayson Lawrence. Prior to joining this program, I studied marketing management at Virginia Tech. Upon completion, I will be joining Noble Reach as a scholar.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samir Hossein. My undergraduate study was in business information technology with concentration in cybersecurity management and analytics. Upon completion of this program, I plan on pursuing a career with Peraton, where I'll be a project management associate supporting the Department of Interior. I want to pass it back to Brian to give some acknowledgements.
We are very grateful for many people throughout the course of this project. I specifically want to highlight our capstone sponsor, Brian Haight, who provided the perfect balance between collaboration and autonomy. CBA Director Jennifer Havens, who attended many of our on-site meetings and visits to ensure adherence to CBA guidelines, and Dr. David Teagarden, who facilitated us with more of the technical issues that arose during the development of our system. So the Noble Reach Foundation is a nonprofit bringing together the best from academia and industry to help serve the federal government and achieve federal government guidelines. Specifically, we focus on their Emerge program. With the Emerge program, Noble Reach's goal is to facilitate a seamless connection between the list of embedded entrepreneurs in their database with government research projects, specifically at the NSF and DARPA, in order to expedite the process of bringing innovative products to market. Unfortunately, much of this process is currently handled manually, and given the anticipated surge in both entrepreneurs and contracts, it is becoming crucial to establish a more automated system to help make this matching process go by more efficiently. Thus, we are left with our key question: how can Noble Reach enhance and automate their embedded entrepreneur database system to achieve the most precise and efficient matching of entrepreneurs with research projects that best suit their needs? Now I'll pass it off to Samir to walk us through our project timeline.
Thanks, Brian. We want to show you guys this timeline to show you the journey on what it took to get to our solution. We begin our journey in September during the learning phase. This is where we interviewed several entrepreneurs and evaluated what went well and some challenges they faced during the matchmaking process. We also explored potential taxonomies and tools that we might use for our project. This brings us to our conclusion drawing phase, where we finalized some of the takeaways that we got from these entrepreneurs and broke down how we were going to pursue the project, in addition to finalizing which tools and taxonomies that we were going to use. This brings us to the last 5 months of the project, the execution phase. This is where we actually built out our tagging and matchmaking system. I'm going to pass it back to Brian to show you guys our project breakdown.
Thanks, Samir. Throughout the course of our project, we conducted numerous whiteboarding sessions to get a better understanding of the process flow, with this funnel right here being one of the most prominent and overarching examples. This funnel really helped us to better understand our place in this process, as rather than focusing on everything, we mainly focused on the first step of scraping the internet to gather information about the technical and business backgrounds of the entrepreneurs in the database to tag them and match them efficiently. This really helped make it so the database could be pared down to a point where some manual work could be done later with the remaining entrepreneurs without being overwhelming or needlessly time consuming. This manual work includes a secondary contact email as well as an interview. And once that is all done, you are left with the most optimal match given the entrepreneurs currently in the database. Now to pass it off to Grayson to talk about some of the tools we use to do this.
Thanks, Brian. One of the main tools we used for our project was DiffBot. DiffBot is an online suite of products that allowed us to find and filter specific information we wanted from both embedded entrepreneurs and startup companies, and take that information and turn it into a text block to feed into later portions of our code. I'll now pass it to Alton to talk about our taxonomy selection.
Thanks, Grayson. So the taxonomy that we chose, Lightcast, is an open skills taxonomy, which is constantly evolving and being updated. There's two key features I want to highlight with this taxonomy. The first key feature is that it's hierarchically structured. So at the highest level, the broadest level, you have 31 categories of skills. Then at the middle level, with slightly more detail, there's 440 subcategories. And then finally, at the most detailed level, there's 35,000 skills in this taxonomy. The next thing I want to highlight is the API capabilities of this taxonomy. What this taxonomy enables us to do is we can actually call functions from their servers to help us get what Grayson was mentioning, text, and turn it into tags or into skills. Next, I want to pass to Samir, who's going to give us an overview of the system.
Thanks, Alton. I want to give you guys a high-level overview on how our system actually works. I want to take your attention to the right-hand side of the screen. This is how we get our entrepreneur tags. We begin by using DiffBot to scrape the internet for all the information we can get on the entrepreneur. We take that block of text and divide it into 3 categories: education, employment, and general. We run that through Lightcast and get our first set of tags. We also supplement this data with running the resume through Lightcast, and we get tags from that, combine them together, and get our final entrepreneur tags. As you may notice, the left-hand side of this, the left-hand side of the diagram follows a very similar pattern. We take the researcher in the researcher's lab, run it through diffbot and see all the information we can get out on the internet. We run that through Lightcast, get our tags for the researcher project. We take the job description for the given position, run that through Lightcast and get our tags for that, combine those two together, and get our final startup tags. Now I'm going to pass it back to Alton to talk about the actual matchmaking process.
Thanks, Samir. Once we have our entrepreneur tags and our startup tags, most of the heavy lifting has been completed. To see if there's a good match, what we do is we simply look for overlap between the tags occurring at similar frequencies. So if you have a startup with a bunch of computer science related tags, to see if an entrepreneur is a good match, we simply look for those same exact tags and see if they occur at similar frequencies. If both of those conditions are satisfied, you would have a strong match. Next, I want to pass it off to Grayson, who's going to tell us a bit more or show us some examples of our tagging out.
Thanks, Alton. After moving through our learning and conclusion drawing phases, we were able to write a script that outputs a table of embedded entrepreneurs and their skills. Shown behind me is a snippet of one of these output tables. Here we have an example embedded entrepreneur, a list of their skills, a count of their skills, a granular column, which shows their granular skills, which are business skills we felt essential for every embedded entrepreneur to have. And finally, a classification column, where we classify skills as either business or technical. I'll now pass it to Alton to talk about our matching outputs.
Thanks, Grayson. Our matching output is also a table. You'll see first we have our startup. Next, we have a list of different candidates. After that, we have our overall match. So for the first entrepreneur in this case, we have about a 34% overall match, 0.34. Next, we have our business match, which isolates for only business skills. And then we have our technical match, isolating only for technical skills. Finally, we have our weighted score. The weighted score enables a user, by using a slider, to weigh business and technical skills according to what they think is most important for the startup. In this case, if startup A was a very technical project, the user could pull the slider closer towards technical, which would recalculate the weighted score for every entrepreneur and sort the table accordingly. Next, I'm going to pass it up to Samir, who's going to lead into the financials.
Thanks, Alton. We want to highlight some financial benefits that NobleReach can see from implementing our system. Our biggest benefit is the time saved. We calculated this by taking the time spent describing and the time spent matching and adding them together. Our system can reduce the time spent matching by 95% and the time spent describing by 98%, significantly lowering costs for NobleReach so they can invest in promoting more mission-driven work. I want to pass it off to Grayson to talk about our enabled scaling.
Thanks, Samir. The second way our system will benefit NobleReach is through an increased ability for our merge to scale. This will be done through increased DARPA and university contracts. And we anticipate our system helping NobleReach obtain 15% more DARPA contracts and 15% more university contracts. I'll now pass it back to Samir to talk about our recommendations.
Thank you, Grayson. Our first recommendation, this is just the first version of our system. And there are further enhancements that NobleReach can make to better tailor it to suit their needs. Our first recommendation deals with streamlining the code base and optimizing it for Salesforce. During our project, we didn't have access to the Salesforce that NobleReach uses, so optimizing the code to utilize Salesforce's full capabilities would be in the best interest of NobleReach. Moving on to our second recommendation is implementing some kind of machine learning and feedback component, using historical data to make new matches even better. Our last recommendation deals with enhancing the data collection. I want to take you guys back to the funnel that Brian previously mentioned. Entering variables from steps 2 and 3, where there's some human contact and we can evaluate some more subjective skills such as communication and leadership, and adding those data points to describe the entrepreneur can help better define an entrepreneur and make a better overall match. I want to pass it back to Brian to close to wrap things up.
Thanks, Amir. So we learned many things throughout the course of doing this project and our time in the CBA. First of all, having a real world impact to save time and money was really inspiring to help us learn. We all learned some coding throughout this year, but the most effective way we learned to code was through this project, because knowing that this would be a system that would be actually used by the company to help expedite their processes really inspired us to drill down in the code more than a typical classroom environment could. Next, we really emphasized the value of strong communication, both amongst ourselves as we collaborated on deadlines and deliverables and delegated tasks, but also with our capstone sponsor, Brian, whose usage of the statement of work at the beginning and frequent collaboration with us in our meetings really helped to set the stage and keep us on track as we developed our system. Finally, it's really, really cool to say that something that we did for a school project can actually is implemented by the company. The tagging system has already been used to help create proposals to secure more contracts in the future by being able to accurately mark what percentage of the entrepreneurs in the database have the necessary skills to meet agency goals. But also we got to meet with numerous other parts of people in Noble Reach who were interested in applying the tagging and matching to their own lines of work with other partners in academia and industry. So thank you so much to CBA and Noble Reach for giving us this opportunity, and thank you all for listening to our presentation.
Fantastic job. I was wondering, as you are looking at the initial scraping, right, of all the resumes and the entrepreneurs that you find, if you've done any kind of bias analysis to look at, for example, different demographics, DEIB considerations, so that we're not falsely training the algorithm? Is that something you consider?
So that is something we talk about. There is no algorithm in this system, but DiffBot uses primarily web data and primarily LinkedIn data. And so we ran into an example with one of our embedded entrepreneurs. She was really great at describing herself. So she was coming up on top of our tables a lot because she was great at describing her business skills. So that is one example of bias we did see in our product. But what helped was supplementing with a resume, because people are a little bit more descriptive on there sometimes than a LinkedIn profile. Does that answer your question? Great.
I was wondering, regarding your matching, do you do matching one project at a time? Or are there like simultaneously 10 different projects and entrepreneurs where, you won't be able to, like, say, if there's an entrepreneur who's really skilled, that you won't be able to assign that person to 10 different projects, one at a time, or?
Yeah, I think so. The system is capable of, you could have 10 projects and run every project on all, let's say, 200 of the entrepreneurs in your database and get an idea of what would be good matches for all the projects. And then I think when Samir was talking about integrating Salesforce, having sort of a database, which I think they're going to be interacting with Salesforce, where you can flag an entrepreneur, for example, as available or not available, or already working on something or not, I think will be useful so that you don't get sort of recommendations which are sort of bogus because they're already occupied or they can't work.
Going back to your matching output table, did you go into a little more detail of how that 34% for the overall column was calculated?
Sure. So what we do is, for each table, you remember there's the count when you're describing the tags. We transform those into a standardized count, so it'll be a percent of the table. And what we do is we just compare for each skill you find in a startup's table, we try to find it in an entrepreneur table. So if a startup had a skill like biotechnology, and it made up about 20% of that table, so it's a significant tag for that company, you would look through all your entrepreneurs, you would try to find biotechnology. If you find it, you would compare the values. So let's say for an entrepreneur, biotechnology is only about 5% of their expertise. That wouldn't quite meet the requirement of the company. Versus if it had the full 20%, that would meet the requirement, or 30% more than exceeds the requirement. And so you do that sort of comparison for each skill. And in the end, you see how many of the, what percent of the skills you're able to preserve when you're matching with an entrepreneur. So 34% would mean that of all the skills, about 34% of them are preserved at those frequencies. That's all. Thank you guys so much.
So hello, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are the Norfolk Southern Capstone team, and today we'll be discussing our local operating performance adherence investigation for the Blue Ridge Division. And we're going to do some brief introductions now.
I'm Jackson France. I was a finance undergrad at Virginia Tech, and I'm looking for data analyst roles.
I'm Logan Olson. I have a management consulting degree from Virginia Tech. I'm also looking for data analyst roles.
And I'm Paul Rourke. I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry from here at Virginia Tech, and I'll be working as a sales and operations analyst in Atlanta in the fall.
I'm Brock Shorten. I graduated from Virginia Tech with a bachelor's and a master's in mechanical engineering. And after graduation, I will be working as an engineer for the Army doing military equipment testing.
We want to acknowledge all the people who have helped us on this project, our sponsors at Norfolk Southern, both Andrew Allwine and Megan Akamasi for your support, and Dr. Cliff Ragsdale for being our faculty advisor on the short-term notice. So thank you so much. And now we're going to do a little bit about Norfolk Southern. So they are one of 7 Class 1 railways operating in the United States. And a Class 1 railway is classified as a company that has over $950 million in revenue as of 2021. They have over 19,500 track miles and operate in 22 states, including Washington, D.C. And they serve more than half the US population and manufacturing base, which sets them up a lot for economic growth. Now Logan's going to get us started with our problem statement.
After many conversations with Norfolk Southern, it became clear there are 2 main problems we wanted to tackle as a team. The first being we want to find areas of opportunity for growth in Norfolk Southern, and the second was to improve customer service. The question we came up to summarize these 2 things were: what opportunities are available for Norfolk Southern to improve local operating performance adherence, also known as LOPA, service metrics for various locations, and can these solutions be applied throughout the network? I'm going to move into our project introduction. After we went over overall our data and find out what our goals was for this project, the first thing we wanted to do is be able to score all the serving yards. To do this, we wanted to create a performance metric. Once this metric was completed, we could then move into each of the following steps. First being to compare the serving yards. When the performance metric was created, each serving yard will be applied to, will have a number applied to them, and we could rank them from the top performing serving yard to the bottom. The next thing we wanted to do is look at the network as a whole and all the serving yards combined. When we do this, we can create a framework to look at performance and see areas of opportunities for growth. Hopefully this will lead to enhanced resilient service. Now I'm going to move on to the team objectives. Norfolk Southern made it very clear that they wanted us to focus on their customer relations. By looking at first mile and last mile opportunity areas, we can focus on customer-centric solutions that help Norfolk Southern and their customers grow. The second thing we wanted to look at was resource allocation. That's the fastest and easiest way to help Norfolk Southern grow, and will help streamline business processes and create for greater simplicity. And the last thing, as I mentioned before, we wanted to create a framework for performance. This will set a baseline for performance across the entire company and hopefully create a structure for them going forward. I'm going to pass it to Brock to talk about our research and analysis.
Thank you. Once we had our problem statement figured out, we could then begin to look at our data. Norfolk Southern provided us with quite a large amount of data. We had to figure out a way to be able to use this data more efficiently. We decided that the best way to do this was to create data visualizations and dashboards for data analysis. This way, we could see the data and how the different variables played with each other, and that way we could move on. We could take those visualizations and look at them, and then drill down into those visualizations to distill out our recommendations for Norfolk Southern. And once we had our recommendations for Norfolk Southern based off our data, we could look at the economic benefits that these recommendations could provide for the company. So unfortunately, we can't provide some of the dashboards due to confidentiality, but I will just talk about them. Here are some of the dashboards that we made before we got into our performance metric. We had some key insights from these, such as we identified how different instances of LOPA non-compliance codes, there's typically a few of them that are much more common than many of the other reasons. And these are the ones that we wanted to focus on, and we believe Norfolk Southern should focus on how to improve on. Additionally, we wanted to look at how Day of the Week affected Norfolk Southern's ability to deliver to their customers. And so we had a dashboard that looked at this, and we found that throughout the days of the week, there was more instances of non-compliance at the beginning of the week, and this sort of tapered off at the end of the week until we noticed that there was a jump on Friday. And we believe this jump on Friday in non-compliance is caused by compounding issues from earlier in the week. Cars that are not able to be delivered, say on Monday or Tuesday, are then put off and then kind of build up, and which causes more problems later in the week, which we believe that different resource allocation for Norfolk Southern could help alleviate this issue and reduce non-compliance as a whole. Additionally, we found that there's an inverse correlation between the LOPA compliance percentage of a serving yard and the amount of total miles that they have to travel to service their customers. So if you have a serving yard with customers that are a lot more spread out, they tend to have more issues with reliability and servicing their customers. Now I'll pass it to Jackson to talk about a performance metric.
Thank you, Brock. The next step in the team solution development was to create a performance metric that could be used to not only compare the different serving yards within the Blue Ridge division, but could be used as a framework for evaluating the different divisions within Norfolk Southern's network. Starting with the numerator, the first component of our metric is the total number of cars planned for a serving yard. And this is to give us a measure of the volume a serving yard's handling. We then took that volume and multiplied it by the serving yard's compliance percentage to have a measure of how compliant their service is. And then we took that numerator and divided it by the total number of hours worked to have a measure of how a serving yard is allocating its resources to achieve that level of service. And so this performance metric can be used to evaluate the different efficiencies of the different serving yards. Building off of that metric, we then create a performance matrix that can be used to compare the different serving yards. So our metric makes up the x-axis, the number of planned cars makes up the y-axis, and the two reference lines are the averages of each axis, and they make up the 4 quadrants. Starting with the upper left quadrant, this is what we call the opportunity zone. These are serving yards that have a high degree of volume, but they don't handle that volume efficiently as evidenced by their low performance scores. Moving to the upper right quadrant, this is what we call the ideal zone. This is where you want the serving yards to end up. These are serving yards that have high performance scores and high volume. Moving to the bottom left quadrant, this is the investigation zone. These are serving yards that have low volume and low performance scores. And so a deeper dive would be needed to understand how we can move those serving yards from the investigation zone to the ideal zone. And then the bottom right quadrant is the growth zone. These are serving yards that have high performance scores, but low volume relative to its peers. And so the two zones of interest that we built our recommendations for were the growth zone and the opportunity zone. For the opportunity zone, these are serving yards that the focus needs to be to reallocate those resources. And then for the growth zone, this is where the marketing effort should be focused because these serving yards are the most primed to have an increase in volume due to their already efficient operations. Next, I'll pass it to Paul to talk about our economic analysis.
Thank you, Jackson. So for our growth zone, we were unable to show you all our recommendations because of our strict NDA. However, for our opportunity zone, we were looking at ways of decreasing the amount of resources that each individual serving yard is absorbing in order to generate cost savings for the company. And there are many different ways of doing this, but the most prevalent one that we identified was increasing the average train length for each delivery that was done at a specific serving yard. And for one area, we discovered a 20% decrease in working hours through this one methodology. And this resulted in a cost savings of over $1 million in the 2 years that we investigated. And this is compounded later on throughout the years. Now Logan's going to talk about one of our other recommendations.
For one of the instances of non-compliance that we dealt with over the majority of our project, the best course of action we felt to help alleviate this issue was to impose a tariff on certain customers. To do this, we went through our first 2 years of data. So the data we received was from 2022 and 2023. And if this tariff were to be imposed on this certain instance of non-compliance, we expected around $4 million of revenue for those 2 years. And after a full year of this being in place, as you can see on the graph in 2025, we expect about a 50% decrease in non-compliance due to customers not wanting to pay this tariff over time. Now I'm going to pass it to Brock to talk about our takeaways.
So our final thoughts for final recommendation of the project, we believe that we created a framework for Norfolk Southern that they can take and kind of expand out to their other divisions, and then they can use to analyze their business model more effectively. For our final thoughts for the program itself, this program gave us a very great experience with the client-facing work and a lot of hands-on experience. Additionally, it provided us with an opportunity to work directly with industry professionals, which will be invaluable to all of us as we continue on with our careers.
And lastly, we just want to acknowledge everybody who helped us out with this project, everybody at Norfolk Southern and all the staff at the CBA. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And that concludes our presentation. I know Mike's got one.
So the thing that strikes me about this one is there's probably a whole lot of quantitative data that you dealt with, like average train car length. You mentioned. Is there any qualitative data that's popped up that surprised you?
I wouldn't say it surprised us, but there is a lot of qualitative data. There's so there's two different types of like pulling the cars from like a train station. You either pull it or you place it. And that was one of the two different types of qualitative data that we investigated. I mean, there's plenty of different ones like talking about the location, like customer location, either serving yard location, either like train ID, stuff like that. So there's a big mix of both.
Did you discover maybe a yard that did things very, very well, and there was some learning lessons from that particular yard that you needed to call out specifically to in or what?
So one of the things that we did for our for Norfolk Southern was identify the top and bottom performers in their division. And so we identified the top like 10 or 15% of the serving yards in this division and the bottom 10 or 15%. And as a way to say like, these are the ones that are performing the best, and that Norfolk Southern themselves need to investigate to figure out what they are doing differently. Why are they handling so much, like their increased volume so much better than some of the other serving yards?
It has always struck me with those kinds of projects that some of that qualitative stuff pops out that you need.
And building off that, we found that one of our highest performing serving yards is actually located in very close proximity to two of our underperforming serving yards. And so we thought that would be a very feasible area to kind of reallocate some of those resources.
Well done.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming and welcome to our presentation on developing a loyalty program for ValleyStar Credit Union. I'm Sarah Yoakum. My undergraduate degree is in marketing management from Virginia Tech. And upon completion of this program, I'll actually be joining ValleyStar as a data analyst.
My name is Alex. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. Graduate degree in BIT from Virginia Tech. And after the program, I'll be working in finance.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Neff. I graduated from the University of Richmond with an undergraduate degree in finance. And upon completion of this program, I plan to work in the finance industry as well.
My name is Stephanie Zamora. My undergraduate degree is in business information technology from Virginia Tech. And after this program, I'll be working at Leidos as an analyst. We'd first like to thank the ValleyStar team for their continuous feedback and guidance during this whole project. Next, we'd also like to thank our Virginia Tech advisors, Jay Winkler and Dr. Gianni, for their support as well. And now I'll pass it off to Alex to go over the overview of the project.
So first, we will briefly go over the problem that ValleyStar presented us, and that was creating a comprehensive loyalty program that would attract new members, but also maintain and strengthen the current relationships that they had. While working on this project, we asked the question, how can ValleyStar create a plan that aligns with their core values of innovation and mutual success between the credit union and the member? To introduce our project, ValleyStar analyzed data to see if there were key indicators that would determine if a member would stay for life. In turn, those key indicators were used to develop a comprehensive marketing plan to attract new members. It's important to note the impact of adding members, as it means that ValleyStar will be able to hold more deposits and you'll be able to make more loans and earn interest on. That interest will serve as revenue for the credit union. The purpose of our project is to educate the members on the products that ValleyStar offers, and encourage them to enroll in as many as possible so they can continue to be a member for life. And now we will talk about the objectives.
There are three main objectives for this project. The first is to conduct market research on ValleyStar and their competitors to understand their demographics and evaluate how they compare against their competitors in their industry. The second objective is to investigate previous member incentives to leverage them in the development of future programs. And the last objective is to develop solutions towards a tailored demographic by analyzing member data to find any trends and areas of opportunities that ValleyStar can act on. And now I'll be passing off to Sarah to go over the data exploration.
Thank you, Stephanie. We've explored and examined the raw data that was given to us by ValleyStar, first in Excel, and then visualized it in Tableau and Power BI, to then eventually create our recommendations. In Excel, we started off broad, exploring all member data. By making these graphs, we found that baby boomers, millennials, and Gen X hold the most accounts, and they have a combined 36,000 plus savings accounts and 18,500 plus checking accounts. Gen Z and Gen Alpha have very few accounts, most of which are savings. Speaking of teens, we found that members under 18 have 1,012 savings accounts and 227 checking accounts. We decided to target Gen Z and Gen Alpha as they hold only 9.9% of all savings accounts and 10.3% of all checking accounts. It's important to note that ValleyStar defines Gen Z as birth years 1997 to 2012 and Gen Alpha as birth years 2013 to 2023. To further our project along and gather the necessary data we would need, we decided to explore the amount of products by birth year. In doing this and making these visualizations, we found the most popular products are savings and checking accounts. The least popular products are certificates and money markets. And we also found the median ages at opening for the top 5 products. These top 5 products are savings, checking, indirect auto loan, direct auto loan, and a Visa Horizon. Now for our key takeaways. The first key takeaway is that Gen Z and Gen Alpha present the largest demographics for growth. Checking and savings accounts will serve as a launch point for other products, and we can educate members on services that they will need for each stage of their life. I'll now pass it off to Stephanie for our recommendations.
Thank you, Sarah. After analyzing member data, we have developed 3 recommendations for ValleyStar's loyalty program. The first is to introduce teen accounts to target a newer generation of members. The second is to offer cashback on checking accounts to encourage more direct deposits. And the last recommendations is to have a financial literacy presentation to educate members of all ages. Now going over the first recommendation, which is the teen accounts. The goal of this program is to introduce teens to financial literacy and financial responsibility at an early age to help build their trust in the credit union. The only requirements is that the account holder must be between the ages of 13 to 18. And we'll also have many unique incentives to help attract these new members. The first one being that there are waived fees and no minimums to open an account. These members will also have the opportunity to earn a $125 bonus if they enroll in direct deposit for at least 3 months. And they'll also have exclusive discounts to first-time auto loans. The overall purpose of this teen accounts program is to expand the current member base while cultivating lasting relationships with these members at an early stage. And I'll be passing off to Jeremy to go over the cashback program.
Thank you, Stephanie. The cashback program on debit card transactions is something that's new to the industry and is being implemented by financial institutions around the country. This motivates members to enroll their direct deposit into a checking account if they have not already done so. A limit of $1,000, for example, could be eligible for a small percentage of cashback each month for members with direct deposit. We can incorporate different limits for different groups or more cashback for members with more products or any other type of benefit that ValleyStar can provide. The cashback program opens up a lot of doors for enticing members to enroll their direct deposit with ValleyStar. Now I'll pass it over to Sarah to talk about the financial literacy program.
Thank you, Jeremy. The financial literacy presentations will serve to educate members and non-members on financial literacy topics and ValleyStar product specifics. We chose to do these to promote ValleyStar's community outreach mission. We will offer sessions for both middle and high schools and adults. For the middle and high school sessions, we urge ValleyStar to first work with local schools in the Martinsville area and then branch out. They will present during a finance class or an assembly for the entire school, and they will last 45 minutes max to keep the students' interest. Some of the topics could include the basic facts of savings and checking accounts, ValleyStar's teen account, saving for a first car, college, and other expenses, and how credit unions and rates work. Not only should ValleyStar have pamphlets about their products, specifically the teen accounts, they should also have some merchandise to hand out. I'll now pass off to Alex to go over the adult sessions.
Thank you, Sarah. There will be two key changes for adult sessions. First, being that topics will be covered in more depth, and they'll also relate to products that you need as you progress through life. For example, a retirement account or a mortgage when you're ready to purchase your first home. Second key change is the importance of the members, as they will be able to determine what topics will be covered, when they will be covered, and how they will be given, whether it be online via Zoom or they be in person at a physical location. To further incentivize members to attend, there will be giveaways in the forms of hats, t-shirts, and other dinosaur merchandise. Now I'll pass it off to Jeremy.
So our economic analysis can be difficult to quantitate in dollars because of the needs of each member with ValleyStar. Therefore, we use the number of members in each group as a way to quantify the progress of the loyalty program. On the left-hand side, you see the current breakdown of each group and how many members are in it. On the right-hand side is the projected number of members in each group after the implementation of the loyalty program. We can estimate through research and historical data that 15% of members without direct deposit and checking accounts will enroll in direct deposit and create a checking account after the implementation of the loyalty program. On the next slide, you'll see a side-by-side comparison of before and after the loyalty program. And as you can see, there are more members with checking account and direct deposit after the implementation of the loyalty program. This forecast does not take into account retention rates or new member signups after the implementation of the loyalty program. Now we'll move into the comments about the program. So first off, thank you to the faculty and staff for your help with this presentation and the development of this program. Second is for our professors that are here today. Thank you so much. You taught us real valuable experience that we'll carry into our professional careers. And lastly, for our cohort classmates, thank you so much through the team bonding and after our events held by the CBA staff. Helped us with building group chemistry throughout the year. So thank you. And now we'll take any questions that you have.
So could you speak a little bit about why you did both Tableau and Power BI and maybe the trade-off between those two?
So we were more knowledgeable in Tableau, so that's why we started with that. And then when we were presenting to ValleyStar, they really did like the Tableau. However, Power BI was what they could use, and so they wanted something that they could interact with. And Power BI is a little bit more powerful anyway, so it kind of worked out best of both worlds.
Thank you.
You find anything surprising when you were going through the data that you were given?
Surprising, not really surprising, to be honest. I mean, Gen Z and Gen Alpha having very few accounts really makes sense to me. They're really young, and baby boomers and millennials having the most accounts also makes sense because they're older.
So I can build off that. What we did find surprising was, and we left it off of this presentation and kept it in the one with ValleyStar at their corporate headquarters, was the closeness and age of opening at almost like for every product. We kind of mentioned it with the life stages. We kind of see a pattern of members throughout their entire stay with ValleyStar that they need a car loan at 22, a mortgage at 30, or whatever it may be. So that was kind of surprising with the median age at opening for almost all members. It was kind of relatively the same.
Yes.
So I don't see anything on geographic location. So Gen Z or what have you. Banking world has changed significantly from the 90s to the collapse of the interstate banking rush. So is this just ValleyStar's territory? Did you look beyond ValleyStar's territory?
So we did only look at ValleyStar's territory because it's just for ValleyStar. And since they are a credit union, they can only have members in their territory. They cannot extend membership to anyone outside of their territory. When we were looking at their competitors and other banks, we did look at people outside of this territory. So we did look at that, but for their loyalty program and things like that, it was only for people in their territory.
Thank you.
Here again, we have a number of folks from the sponsor side of ValleyStar here. If they had any comments about their experience.
Yeah, I mean, this was our second go round. I think the first go round for us was, it was new. So I think just our team, just understanding how to interact and help the team and kind of be a mentor and kind of definitely explain our scope, because the scope can quickly get out of control. Definitely when you got such great talent to work with, you're like, oh my God, we could do this, we could try this, or have we tried this? So I think this go around, we were definitely a little bit more focused. We knew the scope aligned to our values. And so we really allowed them to kind of jump in there and kind of within that framework, help us develop these pieces that you see. But I think the other piece that we saw is, we were talking about the credit union and talking about, you were mentioning the bank back there, how it's, there is no territory. For the credit unions, we serve our members. So that membership piece is key. So we see this, we really focus on kind of ensuring that they understood the credit union piece versus, your bigger banks, because that's what we stand on. That's what makes us who we are. So you really see that baked into this loyalty program. Sorry, did you? Excellent.
I know what you're thinking. We are the last one. We'll get through this and then get over to the room door.
That's right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our capstone presentation. We worked with X Energy over the past 9 months, which is an advanced nuclear and fuel company. And our project was to evaluate the effectiveness of having a temporary warehouse on site during the construction of their new Generation 4 XE100 reactor. So before we begin, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves.
I'm Brendan Newswell. I'm from Gainesville, Virginia, and I graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in finance.
My name is Justin Alcorta. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I graduated from Virginia Tech with an undergrad in business information technology.
My name is Forrest Webb. I'm from Laurel Fork, Virginia, and I also graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in management, consulting, and analytics. Not in attendance today is our other teammate, Aiden Cohn, great guy. He's from Norfolk, Virginia, and he graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering from Virginia Tech as well.
We'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for guiding us and supporting us through this journey. This includes Dr. Matt Hertel and Mr. Matthew Welsh from X Energy, as well as our faculty advisor, Dr. Dan Simonza, who is a BIT professor at Virginia Tech. Now I'll pass it over to Forrest.
So we started our project by conducting a literature review of articles from a reputable journal, energy journal called Joule, as well as articles sent to us by our program sponsor, Matt Hertel. So through our literature review, we were able to identify the biggest sources of cost overrun in nuclear power plant construction were inconsistent supply of raw materials, as well as costly delays. Two great examples of this are on the screen now. On the left, VC Summer. It was canceled mid-construction after spending $9 billion. And when the initial estimate was only supposed to be $10 billion, the estimate had risen to $25 billion when they eventually canceled it. That picture on the right there is actually as it stands today. When they pulled the plug, they left everything, cranes, construction equipment, they just killed the project. On the right, you see Vogel units 3 and 4. It was able to be completed. They managed to scrape the money together to complete the project. But as you can see, it was completed 7 years late and cost over double what they initially projected it to cost. Now I'll hand it back over to Justin for our project.
Thank you, Forrest. So building off that, as Forrest mentioned, the main cost drivers led us to, X-Energy presented the idea of us evaluating the effectiveness of having this temporary warehouse on site during the construction to try to reduce delays caused by insignificant materials. So we were looking at finding the optimal raw material order schedule and temporary warehouse storage plan for X-Energy to present to their customer prior to construction. This leads us into our team objectives. We developed a complex model within Excel to estimate the optimal size and costs of the following 3 items: the recurring orders per raw material, the safety stock for raw material, which was basically emergency material or backup materials to have on hand, and the size and cost of the temporary warehouse itself. So using this, we can compare the temporary warehouse costs to the estimated savings, and this gave us an idea of whether building this temporary warehouse would be a good idea. And now I'll pass it over to Brendan.
Thank you, Justin. So first you can see our first model, which was the warehouse cost model. The first factor in the warehouse cost model was the warehouse construction. The warehouse construction was mainly based on the size of the economic order quantity, as well as the additional safety stock. The final component was any buffer space needed just so the workers could be able to transport throughout the warehouse safely. Next was the cost associated with the operation of the warehouse. This mainly consisted of temperature and humidity to ensure that no material spoiled, and also the labor on hand at the warehouse to make sure everything goes smoothly. Next, we have our economic order quantity model. The economic order quantity model had 3 inputs. Those included the total material demand, carrying costs, and ordering costs. Carrying costs are any costs that would fluctuate depending on the size of each order. And ordering costs were costs that would stay consistent regardless of the size of each order. From there, we use those 3 inputs to find the optimal size of each order and the total cost per material for each order and for the total construction process. Here is a screenshot of what the EOQ model looks like. This is just a subset of the total materials that we analyze, but the process is the same for each additional material. In this model, we have the demand rate for each material, the ordering costs, the carrying costs, and with those, we have the EOQ. The EOQ is found by using the square root of 2 times the ordering cost times the total demand over the carrying cost. It's important to note that these numbers are just placeholders. They're all offset by an amount that we do not know. So any numbers throughout this presentation are just placeholders and can be easily adjusted once the quotes from the vendors are available. Next, we have the safety stock model. This model is important to trying to ensure to the best of our abilities that there would not be any delays in the construction process, because as Forrest mentioned, those are very costly in the construction process. The inputs for this model are the lead time, the mean daily demand for each material, and the standard deviation of each material. From there, we find that we choose a level of risk that we want to associate with each material. For our model, we chose 3.09, z-score of 3.09, which associates with a 99.9% confidence interval. We chose this in order to be as sure as possible that we could do the best we can not to have any delays in the process. And the safety stock is found by multiplying the z-score times the standard deviation of daily demand multiplied by the square root of the lead time. Finally, that brings us to our economic analysis. The largest savings that brought by this warehouse is the labor savings. Using a weighted average of the labor rate given to us by X-Energy, which again was offset by an amount unknown to us of $116.85 multiplied by 8 hours a day, multiplied by 7,000 workers. The 7,000 workers was sourced from the Nuclear Energy Institute, and that is typically the max number of workers on a project site at a time. So the $6.5 million number can be adjusted depending on where in the construction process we are. And the final economic analysis deals with early activation revenue. Without these delays, the nuclear reactors will be able to get online earlier and be able to start generating revenue. These reactors in particular can either produce electricity or steam. It's important to note that This benefit is not always realized depending on the contract associated with the construction project, but we added it for context. I'll now pass to Forrest for key takeaways.
Thank you, Brendan. Some key takeaways we would like to leave you with is, firstly, while we are providing X Energy, there are 3 highly adaptable models, one for the EOQ, one for safety stock, and one for the temporary warehouse size. These models will be easily updatable so that as X Energy acquires accurate quotes from vendors and variables of that nature, our work will remain useful to X Energy well into the future and continue driving decision-making as they break ground on future projects. Next, it's important to note that based on the research that we have conducted on past nuclear power plant construction and the current performance of our model based on the most accurate data available to us, if the outputs of our model are followed, X Energy will see significant mitigation of the problems that nuclear power plant construction companies have run into in the past. It's also important to note that the temporary warehouse is designed to avoid those costly delays in which labor rates are wasted and hopefully prevent with the safety stock the inconsistent raw material supply. And avoiding those 2 problems is what justifies the upfront cost of the temporary warehouse, because it's a large warehouse and that cost will be significant. And lastly, our model will provide X Energy with a more reliable framework for planning and execution. And we also believe that our model will help set X Energy apart from its competitors by giving them a tool to accurately depict to their customers what it will take to construct an XC100 reactor. And if they choose to do so, they can share our model with them and provide them with a tool to help them once they start construction. I'll now hand it back to Justin for some recommendations.
Thank you, Forrest. So building off that, we had a few key recommendations for X Energy. Our first recommendation was to continue developing and testing the model as they input their accurate data. Engage stakeholders. They have many customers, so we want to make sure that they can tailor the model to specific customer needs to get the most effective results in cost estimations. Streamline other proactive risk management strategies to further reduce these cost overruns, and conduct long-term evaluations to really analyze the effectiveness of this model and adjust it for future deployments. And I'll hand it back over to Forrest to wrap up our presentation.
So as we reflect on this capstone experience, first of all, we would love to thank the CBA staff for accepting us into the program. We feel very lucky to be here. But we gained valuable insight into what the impact of a problem first approach to business analytics can be. Whenever we first started the project, we were kind of looking at what we had. We're like, all right, what can we do with this? And then we pivoted to the literature review. And from there, we were able to isolate the problem. And then from there, the steps in front of us became more clear. And we were able to break ground on the project and make a lot of progress much quicker. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Wait for it. I was gonna make you work for it.
So great presentation, and what it did for me, simpleton that I am, is it made me see that what you guys developed was a just-in-time plus model. Right? So my question to you becomes, was it that clear early on, or did it take a lot of time?
Like I said, at first we were kind of just talking with our sponsor about really the whole company, because we obviously none of us have experience with the nuclear field except for Hayden. So it took us a while, and then our faculty advisor, Dan Simonza, when we were talking with him, he was just like, hey, this is kind of like what I'm teaching in class right now. Would you guys be interested in taking it this direction? And yeah, a just-in-time system is basically what it is.
I'm gonna ask, do you think this model could be used for other applications in large scale construction outside of nuclear?
Yeah, our model is like super adaptable, and we
We included a lot of inputs for X energy specific needs, but these can easily be adjusted for other kinds of projects, and their necessary inputs, yeah.
So to build on that, our model has like an input sheet, like a summary sheet on the first page, and it is, we included everything that we could think of, but it's just an Excel model, so if they choose to go into another area of construction other than nuclear, we hope that it would be useful to them.
All right, thank you.
All right, now it's time for their certificates, but I'd like to introduce Jay Winkler, our executive director, who will present our students with certificates.
I'm gonna call all the CBA staff up here for this part. Sorry I missed the early part here. Things are unavoidable, but thank you all for coming today. Thank you to the students. This was such a great day for them to showcase. Now, I really, really wish that everybody had all the NDAs in place that we could have seen what I'll call the guts of the projects, because they did some really cool and innovative things, really solved problems for our sponsors. It's really, really neat to see, and they worked hard at it. And so now is our opportunity to congratulate you for that and give you some certificates. And we have a few other special things along the way here. So just sit tight. Forrest kind of drag you down the road and go into Maroon Door. Not quite yet. I'm always the guy who's got to drag you back in. And so we'll go ahead and get started with certificates here.
Is it by like last name?
So we would like for the students to, colleagues, to sign up, to line up in alphabetical by last name order. So Justin, you're first.
So this is your final exam here. Line up over here. This side. Alphabetical here, so don't pass this test, you don't get the lead, okay?
Oh, yeah. John, I wonder where you're gonna be.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, I'm.
Well, we're gonna line up along that back. You're the intern, you're the like I see somebody playing.
I'm really confident you guys can hold this off. Sorry, let me know when you're ready to go. Okay. You all check yourselves, see how well you did. Righty. And everybody's attention here. So this is going to be my test here to see if I get all the pronunciations correct. And the people who don't go by their given first names, so it'll be a little bit of a challenge here. So, and we will hold applause to the end, please. So we'll just bring people through here. First, Justin Alcorta. Brendan Atkinson. Pratik Batterdini. Amy Bailey. Bobby Beal. Ivan Balapia. Brian Bogert. Declan Boyle. People are watching the screen too, right? Okay. Scott Bratz.
You're letting it.
Jared Brossman. Sophia Campos. Lynn Chitwood. Clay Eckert. Jake Facciani. Also known as John L. Graham Pike. Jackson France. Axel Gomez. Samir Hossein. For those of you who've been through this a couple of times, you notice we're getting more and more.
Kind of.
Sarah Elizabeth
Yeah.
Yoakum.
Yeah, you should.
Kayla Jones. Mitchell Keeney. Nicholas Kidd. Grayson Lawrence. Yeah. Gian Lee. Emily McCorkle. Ethan Mills. Alton Mitchell.
What were you getting when you started the program? I was thinking Scott.
Isaac Warren.
Thank God that was the first thing I did.
Jeremy Neff. Brendan Nussbaum.
Hey, Brendan.
Logan Olson.
I've never been used to it.
Alex Perez. Paul Moore. Oh.
Okay.
Tyler Scott.
Was a really tough road.
Brock Shorten.
Congratulations.
Alex Tellis. Danny Villarreal. Nick Visciuto. Anthony Bowe. John Paul. Yep, want to funk by Sarn. Hey. Esther Wang. Forrest Webb.
Yeah. You like how it's about seven.
Annie Wu. And this is Anthony Zamora. That's a W I identified at the end of the alphabet here. So congratulations.